so that most trails have been raked or blown and are clear. Three separate teams have gone out during the past 2 weeks and have cut and removed the downed trees on multiple of the trails. It is good to note that all of the trails at Heinz Farm are open. Most of the trails on the lead mine property are also open. A couple of the narrower trails still have some trees to be stepped over. They will be addressed in the next couple of weeks. But things are in much better shape than they were 2 weeks ago. The storms really wreaked some havoc on our trail systems.
Mostly tops or tops?
No, these were tip-ups, lots of them.
Oh, a lot of tip-ups? Oh, wow.
The ground is so saturated with water that a little bit of wind, and there's not much to hold them in place. So they come crashing down. What are you going to do? Get in there with the chainsaw and chop it up so that people can still walk through it.
And we don't have an open space.
No, but there is, the advanced thing to your question about the Lakes Association is that we have a member who's going to be a Lakes
Yeah.
Association rep, and we will be able to go to the meetings because their meetings are held on Thursdays and now ours are on Tuesdays. So we will be starting to get reports from the Lakes Association meetings. That was mentioned at the Select Board meeting last night, that we had a member, but nobody ever attended any of the meetings.
Yeah. All right, approval of the October 15th minutes? Do we have a,
I prefer not to have approval of the minutes until the other two members are present, just in case they have commentary relative to the minutes.
well, do we have a quorum here for 3?
We do, but I would prefer not to, well, I will vote against it.
Okay, so then we'll let it go. All right, okay. All right. Walk-ins, Becky?
Joe, do you want to come up? We have 15 minutes to our first public hearing, so. Do you want to go over Heinz Farm first?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I gave them a copy of your proposal. So I had reached out to Joe. Joe had done some work for conservation approximately 3 years ago,
Yep.
some invasive species treatment at Heinz Farm. I think it was 2017.
2017.
Yeah, early 2017. There's some leftover monies in our WIP grant that we still have to use. So I asked Joe about, we have a lot of invasives coming in on the edges of the fields up there. We went out there in July to look at it. So I asked him to come up with this plan so we can use up those funds. So you want to go over it, Joe? I'll let you.
Yeah, no, Glenn had asked me in 2017, as part of the, his, I think, WIP money, he had funds for vegetation control to keep the Heinz Farm fields and prevent invasives from coming in. So what we had done at that point in time was we treated 3 of the field's perimeters for the smaller invasives that were less than 4 feet tall. So we did I did a foliar application, spot treatment, killing autumn olive, barberry, poison ivy, other invasive plants, but selectively killing them. So that worked out good. Now, this project is in reference to the fields that are further away, so to speak. I'm not sure what direction. And what we were looking at was the perimeter of these fields are inundated with autumn olive, but they're so big that if you sprayed it foliarly, it would kill it, but it would kill everything else there, and it would just look ridiculous. It would really look browned out and stuff. And so I did some research. I talked to Randy Prostek, who's the UMass invasive plant specialist, and he's receptive to coming out here and looking at the project and stuff, but I explained to him what we had in mind, and he gave me a prescription on what to do. And what we want to do is kill this autumn olive primarily on a certain stretch. We designated a certain stretch of, we're going to designate a certain stretch to spend this money on to see how it works out. We were trying to figure out how to price this out, because we didn't really know haven't really been done before, so to speak. So instead of picking an area out and saying, let's do that area for this much money, because it's unclear what you're going to encounter when you actually do it. Let's do it on an hourly basis, and then start at a certain point, then you'll know how much you can get done for a certain amount of hours with 2 people for a certain section. And at least you'll have an example of what can be done. And again, this treatment is for the bigger stems, so it's stems that will be cut with a chainsaw, but then they'll be individually treated with this herbicide right on the base with like a sponge, right? It's a very direct, specific application. And this time of year, you can do it any time of year. This time of year, it's ideal because it's easier to get at the stuff. You can see it, and the stuff goes right down into the roots. And that was what we tried to come up with. There's no water issues up there or anything. But it is getting problematic. Those fields in the back, I haven't been up there.
Yeah, I went up.
Since they've been mowed, and
Went
it's
up
just
last
gonna be a
week
continual
and watched
battle.
those turkeys crossing. But right, you can see some of these edges. Some of the ones in the back are pretty bad, like this one. This is all autumn olive here, and the one up in the back, which is near the old Turnpike Road, that one's pretty bad. They did a good job mowing, which is great. This is the old Turnpike Road here. I mean, this is a lot of stuff that's more, this is an autumn olive on this stretch, but on the other side this is more multiflora rose and stuff growing in there too, but you can see a whole bunch
Isn't the other
there.
side where the rock wall is?
Yeah, the other side is right here. This is where the benches that overlooks the fields. They're on the top of the hill with the turnpike. There's a lot of autumn olive on this one. And you can see them better. I mean, all
That
here.
field there, that one to
Yeah.
the furthest to the north there, that is really,
Yeah, this one's pretty bad here. There's some stuff on the edge. All over here looks pretty good, because that was being pretty regularly maintained. It was the rest that got let go for a little bit, so. We'll probably focus on the areas further away from the wetlands at this time, is what we're thinking.
So you cut it?
cut it.
Throw it in it.
Be two-person operation,
Yeah.
one with a chainsaw,
Yeah.
somebody cutting, primarily cutting, and then another person, me or him, and moving the brush away, and then treating the cut
Treating the
stumps
stump, yeah.
individually.
Do you-
Be like a dye in the solution, so you know what you.
So you know which ones you've done?
Correct.
What's done with the brush?
Just laid anywhere, laid down on the side. It's just
Yeah,
gonna,
I'll
it's
have-
just gonna be laid down there. I think as we go along, you'll have a space to do it, because you'll have a previously cut area, and I'm not just move down like that.
Okay, so it's just gonna be left to
Yeah.
decay on the site?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you, how many hours you plan to do to start it?
I put down this, I didn't.
About $3,000, so could probably get about 11, 12 hours in or so, I would estimate based off that.
I was thinking like 4 hours at a shot, see what happens in 4 hours.
4 hours times 2 guys?
We'll try 4 hours once, see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And then if this is insane, or this is working out good, maybe do another 4. But I think, you don't have that much money, but I think you could have enough to at least get an idea what that treatment can do. Versus, because you're going to see some other areas that haven't been treated.
Yeah.
So Joe, the 240 is for both of you? Or is it-
Correct.
yeah.
And it's total,
Yeah,
everything.
okay.
That sounds good to me. I think we have to try something.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You agreed, Beck?
Okay.
Okay. Do we have agreement?
Absolutely.
All in favor? Great. So we'll start up with, a 4-hour test and see how it
Okay.
goes. Good.
How quickly are you going to start, Joe?
I can order the product. Normally what they use for mixture solution is diesel oil, but they do have another product called basil oil. It's kind of a vegetable derivative. It's not distilled or anything, so I can order that and start in a week or so. Probably not this week, but next week, and hopefully it won't snow, so.
Is this something you can get over the counter? Could I buy this at Clem's?
A formulation of it you could buy, but not this
Not
formulation.
that one, yeah.
Right. You need to be licensed, which I am, and you need to have a license to do it, actually.
Oh, you do? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
to apply it, you
I
have.
couldn't do it on my daughter's property?
You could as a you could as a homeowner, but to do it for hire, you need to have a
Oh,
license.
yeah, no, I'm, yeah. Good. Anything else? You got another one?
No, I had written a report. We'll have to go back out there. This is an entirely different subject. And some of you have been out there, 13 Old Hamilton Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a tree removal request.
I had finished the report for that, but I think it would be best if we just go out and look at the trees again. The owner's he's not in a hurry about it, so nothing that can't wait.
So you wanna,
We'll put it on our site visit schedule. I told Joe for the 12th.
Okay.
Yeah,
Meet him
it's
out
so close.
there.
I'll just meet you there.
Right, and that'll give you time to look at the report
Good.
and trees. All right, thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
how's the dog doing, all right?
Yeah.
Keeping an eye on you? Any other walk-ins?
No. We have a few minutes here. One certificate of compliance request. We can do that now?
Sure.
We have two, but there's just one that's quick. We actually got to give someone a copy tonight, that's why I'm asking. This is DEP file number 300-899 for 53 Beach Ave. This was the orders of conditions from when the homeowner, the road association went through the betterment process to pave the roads down on Beach Ave, Mountain Brook and Long. Everything is done. This is just, there's a sale of this house, and it was realized that this certificate wasn't signed off on, so.
They
if you
called
have
me.
any
I
concerns?
sent them to you.
Huh?
I sent her to you.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh. While you're signing that, I'll just let you know the other request for certificate of compliance on here. It's file number 300-550. It's 34 Tannery Road. This one was part of that Allen Homestead subdivision. This one had its own orders of conditions. It did come back. It had an enforcement order. There was an issue out there. They got an amended permit for it previously. So it came in, and I did ask for it. Didn't have the engineer's written substantial compliance letter with it, and because it had all that past history and there's a large retaining wall down in the back, I did ask that. I said that for this project, we do need to have that. So I'm waiting for that. We should get that before our next meeting and be able to sign off on that one, I would anticipate. But
All right.
there was a little more involvement than obviously a simple road one for that one, so,
Okay, so that'll be next meeting.
yes.
Great.
Are you ready?
Holly, you want to take this for,
These are open. Do we need to do it?
Oh. Oh, I guess if they're both continued, I guess we don't
Yeah,
have to do that.
they're both
Okay.
continued.
All right.
I don't want to tie you out tonight.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, 6:15, we have an amendment to the order of conditions for DEP file number 300-1029, continued from October 15, 2019 for Technology Park Road, seeking approval for modification to the site plan. P. DeLeo, owner, represented by J. Grenier, J.M. Grenier Associates, Inc.
Thank you. For the record, John Grenier, J.M. Grenier
Grenier.
Associates.
John,
Yes.
you need to grab the mic, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As you just
Say it
stated,
again, please.
I'm sorry, for the record, John Grenier, J.M. Grenier Associates, on behalf of DeLeo Gas. Actually, Paul isn't with me tonight. His wife just had a new baby, so he's been home with her. DeLeo Gas is a family-owned gas business. They are currently located on the Worcester-Shrewsbury line on Route 20. They have quite a bit of business in this area. They're looking to expand their business. They found this lot, which was already permitted for a similar propane gas distributor, and they were going to have their facility here. Just to give you an overview, it does have an existing order of conditions. It's a 3.5 acre site. There are wetlands to the north and to the east of the property. And what they are looking to do is make some minor modifications to the site to kind of tailor the site to their specific needs. In particular, there was a dock height door. In this location, they have no need for a dock height door, so that got removed, and they have all just regular garage height doors along the back. They were looking to a lot of their own vehicles and some of their employees, they have pickup trucks, so they wanted to increase the width of the driving aisle in the front from 24 to 30 feet, so they'd have a little bit more room to be able to back out of their parking spaces and pull in and out of the site. And the biggest change was when they get large deliveries for propane for the tractor trailers, they looked at the site and they thought it would be nice to be able to pull in off of Picker Road so that they can just do one loop and then exit out onto Technology Drive. This was also shown to the planning board. They thought that was, for traffic flow, an excellent modification, just so that there's not issues with a tractor trailer pulling in off of Technology Road and then trying to do 3-point turns and jockey around it here then to try to get out. So it makes traffic flow much smoother. As part of the modification, we were requested to go out with McClure Engineering, who is they're the reviewing engineer for the planning board, and they wanted us to verify the elevation of groundwater and just kind of do an update on the drainage system. We did that. We went out with McClure Engineering. We verified the elevation of groundwater, and then we also made sure that the pre- and post-development runoff was going to be able to be treated and stored. I had described this to you at your last hearing. Was we ended up raising up the elevation of the berm around the basin. In doing so, it did get shifted 3 feet to the south just to be able to continue that slope, and the same limit of work on the outside of the basin. So with this modification, we're also increasing the volume and the capacity of the infiltration basin, which I would contend is an improvement from what is the existing approved site plan. Obviously, we're capturing all the runoff, we're treating it, we're infiltrating into the ground so that we meet all DEP stormwater requirements for both treatment and recharge of groundwater. I think that's the long and the short of it. As I said, we were before planning board. This was reviewed by their consultant engineer. It was approved at their last hearing, and we got a clean bill of health from McClure Engineering on that. So if you have any questions or comments, would address.
Yeah, so we were waiting for the third-party review for stormwater. It was completed. They did address those things. I do have the revised stormwater drainage analysis and the plans. Considering that they've addressed those things, there aren't any other anticipated concerns with the project. Everything else is pretty similar to what we previously approved. So it would appear that it's permittable and ready for approval. I'd recommend that we approve it with the same conditions when we wrote the permit earlier this year, the new one, just referencing the new plans and the new stormwater documents. So,
David?
I have no questions.
Steve?
Just a quick question. This line right here, that's the 200-foot?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so
that,
here's the 100.
right.
The 100 cuts like through the middle of the basin. The
Yep.
200
Just outside of it.
skirts right outside, like the edge of the basin, and cuts through the middle.
So
of
the extra
road.
drive you added is actually outside the 200?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep, okay. Yeah, I have no other questions.
You're right, though, David. You did need that clicker.
I told you.
You said you had to have one. Have a motion? Close the public hearing?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second?
I further make a motion that we approve the plan
Well,
as...
let's vote the,
Oh,
all in favor? Close the public hearing. Go ahead now.
now I'd like to make a motion that we approve the plan as submitted this evening with revisions.
A second?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, John.
Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Becky, what do you want to do in the next 8 minutes?
And here you were just getting used to the mic, John.
Yep.
See, you don't even have to read your notice tonight.
Well, it's up to you. So the public hearing at 6:30, they're not coming in. The only thing we were waiting on was the DEP file number. So we have two parties here for two different discussions, if you want to have one of those now. One's for 9 Holland Road, one's for 36 Goodrich.
Okay. 36 Goodrich was here first. So, Mr. Dunn, how you doing? Yep. No, no one's ahead of you. The other man.
You know, that could be scary.
Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
This is a nice setup. Entirely different when I first came here. Remember I had a stand and all you people were sitting in the front.
Yep.
You've updated tremendously. Okay. Good evening. My name's Fred Gunn, and you know I am here.
The public doesn't.
I'm sorry?
The public
I
doesn't.
mean, I can give a summary if you want.
Yeah, why don't you?
The
Yeah.
public doesn't know why you're here.
Oh, the public, okay.
And see, that microphone is not for us. That's for the public who is on television, and they're waiting for every syllable of your text.
Dave, I'll give a summary.
Yeah.
I can just give a
Okay.
quick summary if you want.
Yeah.
So, right, we asked Mr. Gunn to come in. He has a open permit with us. It's DEP file number 300-771. He had a project that was approved quite some time ago. I didn't write down the dates here, but I believe like 2007, 2009 timeframe.
It's about 17, I don't know, 7.
Yeah, 2007, 2009.
Long time. 13, 14 years.
Yeah, so, yeah, a project was approved, did come back and got an amended permit. There was some changes with some retaining walls. Work continued to be done out there. Some time has lapsed, the permit has expired. It doesn't appear that some of the work out there is completed or consistent with what the plans were, especially the decks by the water. So we, this had come up from the building inspector, had asked where this stood with us. There was a certificate of compliance request that was submitted early 2017 that got put on hold due to this. So we've kind of brought back this project with this discussion, kind of need to look at how to, bring this back into compliance, see what plans there are, how we're gonna move forward with it, what your plans are, how you plan on wrapping up the project. Do you plan on complying with the permit and the plans? And then how, what the permitting process will be to move forward with the project, so. So I have up here the plans. Yeah, these are old blueprints, so they're hard to see, but, so let me see if I can zoom in, that'll help out here a bit. So we have, I'm gonna go out just a little bit. So we have, this is one sheet, we had an existing house here, house got moved back here. We've got a lot of decks by the water and a ramp, and over here, some of them were supposed to come out. This plan actually is good because it shows what the end result of the project was supposed to look like here. Get the right size here. So this is what the outcome was supposed to be. There's supposed to be some restoration plantings down by the edge of the pond. After this plan, we did receive a revised plan to change the retaining walls going down by the house. So I do have that plan as well that we can pull up that showed changes to retaining walls in this area here. And then in this area, there was a large retaining wall to go in for the septic system. There's no sewer down there. It's all private septic, so that's where the septic is. So we went out last week, did a site visit. Do you want me to pull up the other plan from the amendment? Do you want to see
I'd
that?
like to see the amended
Okay, yeah.
plan.
Yeah, I have it right here, so. So this was the amended plan, looking at it with a different view here. So here's the yellow's the change with the retaining walls. House, same location. And then it shows some of the old decks down here, so with stairs coming down here.
And that was approved?
This plan was approved with the amendment that came in.
When was that approved?
I believe that was 2009.
Okay.
2009, yep. November 19th, 2009. And that's the last plan with the last amendment. So there was some extensions on the permit. I don't have the exact.
Was there a
Date.
planting plan that was associated with the amendment? Because they had extensive plantings in the original approved
Right,
project.
I think this plan was just to show the change with the retaining walls and
Yeah.
approve the retaining wall change.
But
That's from
everything
what I
else is
got from
supposed to
it.
stay the same.
That's my impression too. It was just the inclusion of it for the change in the retaining walls, but.
The amendment was supposed to be a very specific amendment for a specific item relative to the plan, because the plan, as you can see when it comes up, is a very busy plan on a very small lot. Well, it's only small because it has to be, because of the up and down hill situation.
Right.
Yeah, so the permit expired in 2016.
All right, so that's a summary
That's my
of where we
summary.
are?
Yep, I have some photos from the site visit. I know you didn't make it. Do you want to
Yeah.
see them?
No.
No? Okay.
No. We've been by several times. So, where do you stand? What are your plans?
Well, I like to stay where I am and live on this particular piece of land forever.
Oh, yeah, well, no, we're not questioning that, but we're talking about finishing up the plan that you had.
Well, what I
before.
have now is basically what I like to hold on to.
So how does it look now? Does it look approvable in the state that it's in now?
Well, I mean, it's not consistent with
the plan.
plans because there's
Right.
all the decks that were supposed to be taken off in the restoration planting. So it doesn't appear to be consistent with what was approved.
Could you bring us back a plan that is consistent with how it is?
Yeah,
That
I
would-
guess I'll have to find somebody to draw a plan.
Right,
Yeah,
I mean, that would be.
The problem is, we can't approve it as it sits now, because what's on the ground, you can't get a building permit, you can't get access from the building department for it, because it doesn't match any plan that we have in the file. So
okay,
the plan was violated by Mr. Gunn,
that's me.
but we have to have a plan that matches what's on the ground. So if you bring us a plan that's on the ground and ask us for another amendment, then at least that's something that can be considered.
Well, that permit's expired.
Yeah. What I'm saying is he has to have another amendment. Oh, no, he doesn't, because
We
the
need a new
permit's
plan.
expired.
Yeah. We'd need a new plan as is, as it is, for us to consider approving.
And as-is plan.
Yeah. You say you want to live in it as it is going forward, then.
What about all the materials that are underneath that are leaching materials into the lake, though? That's a problem.
It is.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff under
See,
the
that's not
decks that
mine.
really,
That was there. That was one, I didn't put that deck in. That deck was there.
But the members noticed when they were there that some of that material is getting into the lake, Fred.
Yeah, the water's coming underneath those decks, and it's
Oh, yeah.
washing,
On
it's
one
washing
side.
the dirt
Yes,
out
it is.
into, you can actually see out in the lake where there's,
Going
you know,
that way. Yeah, it was a natural, where the roads are high on both sides, it works down, and the low spot and natural water runs down that gully right there between my place and the next door neighbor's place. And it gets down to the bottom, it just goes where it wishes to. I have no control over that. That's, unless I can't alter that. That's the natural flow, as much as I don't like it.
Yeah, but the problem with it is that it's taking the material that's underneath those decks and bringing it out into the lake. So effectively, it's filling a lake.
I beg to disagree, but I'll listen to what you say. It's been doing it for years, so the material that rushes into the lake has got to be natural material that's been there, and it'll still go into the lake, no matter what I do with the deck.
Well, it's
it needs to be stabilized. So
Yeah.
that's what we require for people that live next to the lake, is we require that they stabilize soil so that they don't erode and go into the lake. And that's basically what's happening. The fact that it's been happening for years is not a good thing. It's,
Okay, but how do I do that? That's, Mother Nature is creating her own.
well, part of it, you see this plan is key. And I can understand why this plan was approved, because you have all of these plantings, you have shrubs and trees, those all act to hold that soil in place, to stabilize it so that the soil doesn't wash into the lake. What you have is none of those plantings, or, maybe you have a few, but nothing to this degree, and so that's why that soil is being allowed to, wash into the lake, because you don't have any stabilization. So that's why this plan was good, because everything is stabilized, and what's there now is not good, because it's not stabilized.
Well, I'm assuming the deck is making it stable.
No, it's not. The problem is, if you look underneath the deck, you can see where the rainwater washes down between the slats. You can actually see the grooves in the exposed soil that's underneath the deck. And so that water washes down, it picks up it turns up the soil, and then as it washes down, as it flows down into the lake, it's carrying that soil and that sediment from underneath the decks down into the lake. So the solution for some people that have decks near the lake is that they at least put gravel or something down to prevent that soil from getting churned up and dislodged and put into the lake. So that,
Did you look at that side between myself and the neighbor next to me? It's all grown in over there. There's all kinds of, what do you call that stuff?
Your ground cover?
Well, it's better than ground cover. Laurel, Mount Laurel and stuff, it's all in there.
yep.
So that's the area that the water goes down through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more so on my neighbor's side. I keep trying to move it over, but it wants to come right through the laurel and the thick ground cover.
When we walk down on the deck, could you go to the,
existing.
all right, well, we don't really have an existing, but.
This one?
The one where it shows, yeah, right there. So we were down on this deck,
Yep,
and there's a deck here, I think, too.
Yeah.
that's correct.
So we looked underneath here, that's where I'm talking about, I could see where the slats in the decking were, the openings in the decking, because I could see the grooves in the dirt underneath that deck. And standing right here, there was actually dirt that was coming out from underneath this deck.
Yeah, that dirt-
was washing across.
That dirt didn't come from there. This dirt comes because it's washed down through that trough. It's off the road.
Okay, but if you had plantings in this area, if you had trees and shrubs and ground cover, that would act to, stop that sediment from getting to the lake. That would be, you'd have,
Okay.
hopefully more infiltration or,
Well, I'll try to explain to you the best I can. I wish I was with you at that particular, I was there, but
right.
I was on other things.
No, you were babysitting.
You were talking to David.
I was helping, that wasn't big, I was helping someone. Okay,
Mrs. Gunn, you should introduce yourself.
Okay, I am the other property owner, and I can verify what my husband is saying. And I wish I was there, but I had to go to work that day. But a long time ago, when we were at a meeting, you people approved, and I believe Mark Farrell was here, because he's one of our neighbors, and he approved for our neighbor to put in, what do you call it? It's a
Yeah.
pipe. It's a plastic pipe.
Yeah, it's a,
That comes
Supposedly, yeah.
off the road, and if you come there in a rainstorm, and I've been there in a rainstorm,
it doesn't.
that water washes off that back property, comes down onto Goodrich, comes off of Goodrich, and there's a natural trough, which years ago, the deer used to come down, and that's how they got to the water. But that isn't even on our property, and we have put rock rubble in there to help deter that.
Yeah.
But everybody thought it was a good idea to put a pipe on, not our property, on the next door neighbor's property, to get that water coming off the road. That road's a private road, there's nothing we could do with that road, and if you people come out there in a rainstorm, you will see it gushing like a waterfall coming down from Lead Mine, right down by Mark Farrell's property, and it works its way off that hill behind us. And that's where it empties. It empties on our deck. And I'll even go back a little bit further. When we purchased that property, we had to take the cottage down because the hillside, the road was washing.
The hillside was washing down.
Was coming down and rotted out the back of our cottage. So we had no choice but to tear it down and get up that hill before we even attempted to try to stay there. So we bought a headache, to be honest with you. And if you look under that first deck that you're talking about, the previous owners had, there's rubble, there's not concrete.
Cinder blocks.
Cinder
Cinder
blocks.
blocks.
And that's sort of holding things, and if we go in there and disrupt the whole side, yes, will go into the water. We're trying to leave it there so it stabilizes itself. Otherwise, you're going to have across the whole front of the property a problem.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
But that dirt does not come from under that deck. That dirt comes from the
Comes from the
private
road.
road up the
Comes
hill.
from the road.
That,
Okay.
it's not even a town road.
Okay, I'm not gonna, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm sure that there's a tremendous amount of water
You'll
coming
see
from the
it
road.
come in a
Yep,
rainstorm, and you'll see it.
Okay, so you're saying that the dirt that we saw on the deck is coming from the road. That's fine. Okay,
Right.
I don't,
And
what
we
I
have-
personally saw when I was down here, I looked underneath that deck, and that's the cinder blocks, and there's a whole bunch of exposed dirt
There's an old patio under there.
Yeah.
This is from previous
And I can
owners.
see where the water coming through the deck is disturbing that dirt underneath there, and I'm sure that some of that is getting into the lake. So all we can control is what is coming from your property, and that's what we're trying to do. So the original plan that you had, that had all of those plantings, that would have gone a long ways to stabilizing what the situation that it is. It's not stable right now. The exposed dirt underneath those decks is not
All
stable.
right, so what do you
So-
propose us to do? Build more walls?
No.
What we're saying is somehow the final plan has got to involve stabilizing the dirt that's on your property, that's exposed underneath the decks.
Okay.
Okay,
You know-
those decks,
Yeah.
go ahead.
You have a contract, you had a contract with us as to what you were gonna build there and what you were gonna do. You had a plan, and we agreed to it, we signed off on it. You didn't do it. It doesn't exist today. What we need to do, forget history, okay? You have to encompass what Steve is saying, you can't dump into the lake. We're gonna find you in violation of it. It's not relevant to us where it comes from. So you need to put together a plan for your property with an engineer and set it up and bring it to us and get it approved and then execute it. Now, it can be, the plan could be just as it is. I don't know that, doesn't sound like we'd approve it if it was. We're not asking you to do anything other than keep the silt from going into the lake.
But it might involve removing one of the decks in order to be able to get at some of the material that's under the deck.
Right.
To be able to take care of the problem.
Well, I mean, but that's a detail of what they need to do.
Right, we're not engineers.
We're not engineers, and we're not telling them not telling you what to do for the detail. But you did come to us, you walked away with a plan, and the plan hasn't been executed. So you can either execute the plan, or, first of all, it's out, you've got to come to us with a new one because it's out of date. So,
Okay.
What
Let me
about,
say this. I mean, history has to be brought into this, otherwise you'd be where you are now. It has to go back into history. Okay, the history is, the road is high on both sides, it comes down low in that area.
yeah.
That particular runoff from the road is Mother Nature. It is,
not on our property.
it belonged to the fellow who was next door, and before he could sell it, he came to you people, I guess, and somehow, some way, you agreed to him putting a septic catch basin in. And, okay, he put in a piece of basin about 2 by 2 and 2 feet deep with a grate on it and a piece of pipe coming off of it. That was acceptable. Well, that thing lasted for the first storm, and it's useless. It's full of rough run from the road. And if you go there right now, you will see 4 inches at least of silt, which is washed down off of both sides of the road and builds up there. So the water does not go in that supposedly child's catch basin, because it wouldn't pass for me. I wouldn't put something that small, but he got away with it. And that water is coming down with the silt over that basin. Makes no difference. I have poured rock in there. If you look way up the side, can you show a picture of that basin? I have been
think I have.
constantly putting rock in there.
I got the basement.
You have that where that black pipe is coming in?
Oh, yeah.
Can you show that? Because I actually wanted to
That's
talk
it.
about that, too.
Yeah.
but that's not ours, and that was approved for somebody else.
Yeah, not that one.
That's not
No.
what you're talking about?
No,
No,
Okay.
that's,
no.
Well, this is a problem, too, I think. The reason being is that just below this, and Becky, if you go back 2 pictures, I think,
that's going to be filled with stone when I get a chance.
right, but this wall here,
Yep.
you've got these jacks underneath that you could tell that the steps above are canted, because I think what's happening is that's filling up with water. That square basin was right above here, it's right here, and basically the water's getting into that and it's washing out. It's basically undermining all of this, right?
Well, that's the reason I'm going to fill that with stone, and that pipe is going to carry it off. Okay? Whatever stone off the ground, in other words, the ground is there, has to have a place. Water has to go off the ground someplace.
Do you have an engineer that's doing this for you, or
Well,
is
it's done a
this?
long time ago.
Okay, because I
See,
mean, I
we
think.
need an engineered
Yeah, we-
plan. This is, you can go.
Yeah, but I want to bring up the stuff.
Because your wisdom about history is correct, okay? But as of now, we can't have you creating your own history that somebody else is going to have to deal with in the future, and you can't be silting the lake. So you're going to have to give us a plan
Okay.
and execute the plan.
All right, the silt that runs off now is part of that piping system, which is not mine.
It's not a.
Is it on somebody else's property?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Does it run off your property?
It runs all the way down his property, in between. I own a foot this side, he owns a foot the other side. That goes supposedly down through the middle, but don't work. It starts off on his side. As it gets down, it goes over to my side. And then it goes down through there and washes the stuff off the road right down onto my deck. And I have complained to myself, there's nothing I can do. The only thing I can do is probably remove maybe 10 feet of that deck and let the thing go on its own, because I cannot control where Mother Nature runs that water. I can divert it any place I want to, but it's still gonna go in the lake.
What you've got to do is find a good engineer, and he can come up with a plan to put in detention basins or some way to slow down the water coming down the hill.
And take care of the problem that
See,
Stephen's
we're
talking about,
not here
which
to
is,
engineer. The way we operate is we tell you what you have to do. We've got the Wetland Protection Act that we execute.
I understand what
So
you're
we
saying.
can't have everybody doing what you, if everybody's doing what you're, and I understand anybody that walks up that road and looks down, I understand your problem. We're not, but you are responsible for it. You're responsible for the silting coming off your property and
My
going to the
property.
lake. Yeah.
But this is coming off from our neighbor's property.
Mr. Gunn and Stephen are talking about two separate problems. Mr. Gunn is talking about directly off the road.
Right.
And Stephen's talking about directly off Mr. Gunn's property.
Well, you own to the center of the road, right?
We all
Well,
do.
yeah, everybody.
We all do.
Supposedly.
So the
Supposedly.
engineer will come in and look at it from your perspective, boundary to boundary. And that's what we need,
That's what.
is
that's
somebody
all we
who
need.
is not you and not your neighbor, but somebody who is working towards getting it cleaned up so that the lake no longer receives the junk from the road.
I have a
That's the question, right. Got to get it away from the road, but I don't know how to do that.
If
It's
we,
not your job. That's what an engineer will do.
Okay, but let's say, hold on a minute.
Okay.
Okay, I can tell you what the answer is, because I lived there long enough to see it.
I know that.
Okay.
But I'm not interested.
Okay. but
Because
okay.
I have your opinion. Listen, I've been with you since before 2007.
Yeah, I know.
Okay? So
And that problem's been there ever since.
I know our opinions, but that's not what counts. Come on, Mr. Gunn. We need an engineer to go in there and look at the problem and say, listen, this is how we can solve this problem.
we
Okay,
had an engineer and he was here. We didn't hire him, but Mark Farrell happened to be here and he's the one that came up with this idea of that
Okay.
pipe for the neighbor's
What we need is a
property,
unique
and it doesn't
engineer
work.
looking at your property and saying, I know how to solve your problem.
My problem. Okay.
He's gonna
So,
work
but the
with-
water starts on somebody else's land. So I got to correct my side, basically.
He will take care of
But
it.
the
He will
problem
understand what the
is up
parameters
there.
are. That's his job. That's what he's paid to do.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to tell you where, I hate to bring this up again, but this is the history. Mark Farrell designed that particular catch basin with a pipe for the previous owner, which was Keith Leaning, and it was approved and put in.
Here.
It's
It was
not working.
approved.
But you're looking for an environmental engineer to take care of your problem.
But my problem is because of somebody else's problem uphill. It comes down, it comes down and it spreads out.
I can tell you that's what is under your decks is a problem.
Well, I hate to
That's
disagree with
and-
that.
Okay.
Okay, because it's a combination of rubble that
And what
was
we have
put
to
there.
do is we have to have you agree that you are going to get an engineer to look at your problem and then come back to
with
us.
with a plan.
Otherwise, this is going to have to result in an enforcement action.
They have
Because
no
we can't
choice.
sit here
So
and
let's
talk
just do
about it all night when it's he said, she said. What we're looking for is an impartial person to come in and look at the problem and say, this is how we fix it, and they have to be a specialist in this, which
Okay.
is a trained
Okay,
engineer.
can you recommend someone?
We
I'll get
can't
Farrell.
really do that.
Now get Farrell. Because he's the one that put it in there for Keith Leaning, and it's not working. So I gotta
it
pay
was
to have him
approved
come out
here.
here to correct their problem.
You
All
do
I gotta
not,
do is protect my side.
you need to have an engineer that has the correct credentials to be able to fix the water problem that you are
Which
having.
is an environmental engineer. Is that what you want?
Yes, ma'am.
Would that be, what's the name?
I don't know. It's
Farrell?
our job
Would
to
that be
go
Mark
for.
Farrell? Is he
Why would we
qualified?
want him? He did once and it was wrong.
No. It's a question of what happens down below.
Yeah.
It's like you
We
pour
can- we
water.
can- Come on, Mr.
All right,
Dunn.
Dave.
We can give you guidelines, but we can't give you any specifics
we
because
need
that
you-
would be favoritism.
I realize.
We can't do
I'll
that.
get Mark, he'll look at it. Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be.
But right now, if you come out with me tomorrow, any day, you'll see 4 inches of silt that's washed off the high side of the hill. There's nothing but rocks on the top.
Go to the mic, introduce yourself, it's public
Wait,
comment.
no, we'll get to you.
Finish up, I can talk to him after you're done or whatever, but it's a simple solution for what you guys are all debating on.
Got a simple solution. Good, I'll talk to you.
But that's what
Sell the
we're
place.
gonna come back on an
That's
engineered
our
plan with his
solution.
simple solution. We'll be happy.
Okay, come back with a solution to that water that's coming down on the hill.
Somebody else's property.
Yeah, I know.
Every lake in the town has water coming down the hill. every single one.
The mayor-
Yours is steeper and more exaggerated, we're not trying to.
What happens to the one
The
that
whole
comes off of
road
Goodrich
is-
Road
Yeah,
and puddles right there at the bottom?
but you have to manage
You
it.
seen it? Comes right off of Goodrich Road,
Mm-hmm.
and there it builds up, and it finds its way down through.
I don't dispute any of that. I don't dispute that you have a ton of runoff coming from the road.
Yeah.
That's, I sympathize with you, really. But we have a job to do, and that's to try to protect the lake.
And look at that.
Right. So,
That's going to crash.
Those two are coming down. I didn't, you know, if you would asked me, I would've told you. I'm taking those top two down.
okay.
But see, that's why we need a plan.
And I also
You're working on
want,
the property.
right.
Well, I found this out.
The water, with no plan, just doing what, you want to.
I also want to stress that I would like to see plantings on the property. I'd like to
On
see.
the plan.
Yeah, because the original plan that was approved
Yeah, I know
had
what I'm
had all of those plantings.
Okay.
The
Where the
decks
hell
were
can you
supposed to
put
come
the
out and,
Well, our septic system is where all that grass
Yeah.
is. So if we go start planting trees.
no, you can't put a tree, I understand that. I understand
You
that.
know.
But there's no, the decks that were supposed to be removed and replaced with plantings are still there. So
Well,
that's,
not all the decks were, but,
Right.
okay, let's,
So-
okay.
All right, so we need a
know we
plan.
have to do.
When can you have a plan for us on what you want, how
As
you
soon as
want?
I contact an
gotta go
engineer.
find somebody.
Yeah, we gotta find somebody to draw it.
Well, it's getting on to winter, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no,
Have them contact Becky, and then she can put them on the agenda.
Right, well, I think it's important to maybe establish some timeframes.
Yeah, we
so
gotta
at
have
least
a
get an update that you've contacted an engineer, someone's working on it, and that way we know you're moving forward with it, because, right, all the permits you have right now are expired. Technically, like they said, it's,
So
in
basically what you're
violation,
saying,
but if
I gotta
there's
hire an
a,
engineer. That's what you want
That's
to
what
do.
we-
Hire an
yeah.
engineer to correct the problem that has been existing since God knows when.
Right.
And once I correct that problem on my land, the other guy's land, it can still, all I gotta do is divert that water so it don't run on my land. And it still runs in the lake. I don't have a problem.
We don't care if it goes in the lake on your property, but it's got to go in clean.
Okay, it is, I think, going in
He'll
clean.
know all,
Filter.
he'll know all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
they can contact the conservation department too, and I can talk to them as well, so.
Who?
They can contact the conservation department, and I can talk to them as well, so,
Yeah, okay.
when you get somebody.
Yeah.
Okay?
So you're going to get the name of somebody that you're working with for
I'm gonna
Becky?
have to try to get, I'll try, I don't know who this fellow is here, but, I'll get a hold of somebody as soon as
Okay.
I can, however that's
well,
going to
don't
take.
forget, we have winter breathing down our
You
necks, so
can
we
go
can't.
online and find a number of people that are
Well,
qualified
we've,
engineers.
you know,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, we've gone online in the town of Sturbridge, and we've been told by people they don't want to work in the
Yeah.
town of
Although I
Sturbridge.
will say you guys are getting a lot better.
So
Nobody, when they
we,
hear Sturbridge,
they're
nope, don't want
difficult.
nothing.
and they don't show up. They don't show up. Or they give you a price and they never
I'll
return.
do the best I can.
All right,
So-
Thank you.
great.
So want to look for an update maybe in a month,
Yeah.
month?
Fred?
You have our
thanks for
number,
coming
just
in.
give a call, let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for coming all the way.
You're welcome. Have a nice
You
Thanksgiving.
living there
everyone.
full-time
You too.
now? or
What?
Are you living there
Oh, yeah,
full-time?
I'm a resident of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Get registered with a voter, I live there.
Then you're gonna get a certificate of occupancy, man.
Well, all you gotta do is say, okay,
They're all waiting for Conservation
I've cleared it to
Commission.
everybody, except here's my hangup. If you
Well, but I
people-
think that's because the
Fred, go look at
plan's
your plan.
inconsistent,
The
yeah.
plan you approved with us.
You know,
You
I
didn't-
don't
you
even
didn't
know
do
how
it.
that got there in the first place, to be honest with you, okay? I do not know. That stuff was existing.
No, I mean,
The
you're going
only- I put
history, we're going back. Let's
I
not
know,
do that.
I
Okay.
know it, but it's been there. Oh, yeah, but you're bringing it up. And I can't bring it up.
No, I was bringing up the plan that you got approved in here.
Correct.
You didn't execute it.
That's correct. But how the plan got that way, I'll tell you how it got that way.
No.
I can't bring it up now. There's about
Don't have
9 of
time.
you down here. And you kept twisting my arm. You wouldn't give me a permit unless I did this, this, and this. And it's okay. I want to build, okay.
All right,
Come on in. Thanksgiving, happy.
take care.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Yeah, all right.
Next.
Becky, what are you doing next?
Cedar Lake, Raoul's here for,
All right. Raul?
How are you?
Good.
so Mass DOT is not coming in tonight. Since our last meeting, we did receive a revised plan from Mass DOT, which I have up here on the screen for you. What it includes is a revision to the north side of the turnpike. This was the one last swale that we were waiting for some type of plan for. So they're showing on the third sheet here, they're showing, you know, a stone swale repair.
While you're getting situated, I'd like to ask a question of you and the Lakes Committee representative. Have you guys heard that Mass DOT is moving from the Worcester office?
I have not heard that they're moving from the Worcester office, but if they have a more capable replacement, I would be happy to know what that is.
Town
But
administrator might know something about it because it was on the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, mentioned it.
Yeah, we met with them months ago on another project, and then from the place in Worcester, we moved them and then the medical facility bought out the building.
Oh, great.
well, again, this is Raul Ricard from Cedar Lake Association and 53 Beach Ave, for the record. If they've moved, I need to know that. One of the things that I want to bring up tonight is that we have a pending meeting scheduled on December 13th, which is not that far away. Which, in advance, we're supposed to have the long-term plans from them.
That's correct.
And we had targeted 11/21 to get those plans from them. We are just getting the short-term plans ad hoc on the fly as we approach the repair. So I don't have a lot of credibility to go on that we're going to get those long-term plans at a point that you guys can review them and study them. But our association plans to attend that meeting in December, wherever it might be. I will be contacting Senator Goby and Representative Smola to attend again. I would like to ask for participation from this commission, as well as town administrator will join us as well at that meeting. We're making progress, I guess, not at the pace that we had hoped, and we're not getting the communication from MassDOT on a steady flow like we have. I've had to send a blasting email a couple of weeks back to say, wake up and tell us what's going on, which I did, and they did wake up, and their engineer responded to Becky, not MassDOT. I'm not happy with the communication, not happy with the flow. I'm happy that they're at least getting ready to start some repair. And this is, again, the short term, so I'm from my own personal perspective and from the association perspective, at least they're fixing the bleeding, which is what we said right along, but the long term, we have to hold them to due diligence that you would expect to have, I would assume, from your committee, to make sure they're doing everything right for the long term. I'm not saying what they're doing for the short term is wrong, but we're just hearing about it at the last minute.
Has Bill stopped communicating with you?
Bill has not communicated directly with me. Most of the communication goes through Becky, which it should, because she needs to hear from him. But he does not ever reach out and update us on his own. It's not until we trigger and we push and we ask for it. I've said quite blatantly in conversations with Becky that we need a new project lead. We thought that, what's the other gentleman's name? Tom Emmerich?
Tom, yep.
Was going to take that lead. He's not really taken that lead other than being at the site visit back in the end of July.
July.
He got involved when I sent the blasting email to him, and he just turned it over to the engineers. Peter Reed has been very good from the engineering firm, I think, but he's working on the direction of MassDOT. So you guys can assess where you think you are relevant to the project and then fixing the short term, and are they adhering to what you're asking them to do to give proper plans and proper notice. I encourage that we continue to try and move forward to at least get these short-term things done so that the spring runoff isn't a mess again leading into Cedar Lake, which is when it really will be a problem. So I'd like to get these short-term fixes done. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So my plan from this meeting is to start communicating to MassDOT and to our representatives that we have a meeting coming up, and we need the plans ahead of time to be able to review it and things of that sort. There's been talk about that plan coming together, right, Becky? But
Correct.
talk, and no tangible facts.
So the 21st is when we're supposed to get it?
We had asked to get it before the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, which is like the
And
17th.
I sent out an email to them saying we'd like it that Friday, the 21st, before a real short week, you know?
For a meeting on the
I have a lot of
13th?
hopes in getting that
Yeah.
by that date, personally. Because we haven't gotten a short-term plan on time and on dates right along anyway.
I mean, when did you hear about today's cutting?
That was last week.
So you heard about
They
it last week?
didn't, right, and they didn't give a specific date until the end of the week. He called on Friday, I
But
believe.
the
Yeah.
simple lack of communication, they wanted to
I
do
know.
a site visit with us.
Yeah.
Becky and I said we'll participate in that, you know, before they start the construction.
With the contractor.
With a contractor, didn't hear from, next thing you know, they're out marking trees, and they call Becky on Friday afternoon saying they're cutting trees on Friday. And they decide to do a site visit with her while she's out there. I couldn't make it, but, you know, I mean, we're reacting on their schedule. I don't know that we have any other choice, to be honest. I mean, you guys can push and beg and pressure them as much as you can, but at least they're fixing some stuff right now.
Right.
And I just want to keep whatever inertia we have moving.
Well, I
to
think
get it
the
fixed
pressure
along.
point should be the 13th.
It has to be the 13th. And, you know, I've given project update meetings to our representatives. They've thanked me for it. But I'm not giving them every battle and blow of lack of communication, things of that sort. It will be brought up blatantly at the call. In my
Becky, can
opinion, we should have a
you
new
remind
project
everybody
meeting.
and ask them where the meeting's going to be held and so forth and so on, if there's changes in locations?
Yep. So-
It's a good way to tell them, hey, you know, you guys are on the hook for this.
Yep. So, right, I did inform Raul a little bit when we went out yesterday to meet with the tree contractor. They did have the overall general contractor out there, which I wasn't expecting, which I was pleased. So we did actually have an opportunity to talk to him about how they're gonna phase the swale work, and then the other aspects of the project, which we don't have all the details for yet. So, I mean, their plan is, like I said, their plan is to start next week, if not weather dependent the following week, waiting for more, you know, frozen ground. And then we'll be moving to the other side of the lake. But I did emphasize that they can't just go over there and start doing the work. We really need to discuss the details of that work, especially with the North Shore swale, which is a new plan. I think it's a good improvement for the north side, but really there's a lot of important details because it does discharge into the stream, how it's gonna tie in, it's pretty steep right there, that we'll have to work out. And unfortunately, we've been asking since last year to have a work plan in that sequence so we can understand what they're doing, but they're not putting anything in writing, so.
Where we're at.
In addition to that, Becky and I did have a responsibility to meet with the new resident of 126 Westwood, which they wanted to use to access the land on the
Yep.
side where the new,
Yep. The easterly side.
they
right?
gave us that approval, he gave us that approval. He was clear to express his concern about tree removal when they come in to do the project from the perspective of noise control from the highway and everything else, because he's right on the highway. And our response to him when we went on site with him is we don't think that MassDOT would be open to planting new trees with the short term, because they've got to do the long term as well, which is going to involve access to that part of there again, if they come up with what we talk about. They came out unannounced basically on Monday because we didn't have enough time to let them know, and now he's up in arms about how much they've cut down. This is ridiculous, and may shut down or ask that we do not allow access through his land. So we've got some smoothing out to do, and hopefully we can get him to, I mean, he was complaining about he should have been notified of this before he ever purchased the piece of land or the house. I said, well, unfortunately, that's not our responsibility. That was either the prior owner or your realtors that should have done that, and I've expressed that back to him. But I just don't want that to become confrontational as well, which will make this even more difficult as we get through that pace.
Do they
So-
have a right-of-way across his property?
But there is no right-of-way across his property.
No.
It is the most convenient to do that swale with the less impact to how many trees would have to come down and everything else.
He was actually trying to be a good citizen.
So
He's trying to be a
he's
good
being
citizen. And he gave us a verbal approval to do it, provided they looked at potentially replanting some trees, which I'm sure your association wouldn't be opposed to. Your 2-for-1 rule, I know well. But it's MassDOT land, so I don't know that you control that, right? Secondarily, he wants to make sure that if they access his property, that any damage to his lawn, he's going across a beautiful lawn with heavy equipment, gets repaired. Ideally, you minimize that if you're going across when the ground is frozen, but we can't wait until it freezes. It might not freeze till January, we just don't know. So they're ready to start action. He's a little bit up in arms. Becky, I think you might need to go out there and have a discussion with him, to assure him of what's happening, or MassDOT may have to have that conversation with him. But I think we need to make sure that he's comfortable. You also mentioned, Becky, that another resident needed to be notified, Jim and Jablowski.
On the opposite side, yep, prior to they do the sediment removal out of the pond on that side. That's on private property, so MassDOT's been told that multiple times, so they should be looking into that prior to going over there,
Are
but
they communicating with him, or do we need to do that?
I'm not aware at this time. I did tell them that they need that permission. So
I will communicate with him from the association. He's the current
Okay.
acting secretary of the association, but he doesn't know that yet. But I'll let him know that they're likely going to be looking for approval.
I did see him and I did tell him that before, so he knows. I don't think that Mass DOT has probably
Okay.
taken the initiative to get that approval.
Okay. Lastly, I did inform this group that our association is meeting with a legal firm to make sure that we understand all the ins and outs and aspects of potential impact of this project. That project is ongoing. We expect to have an ongoing workshop session with that attorney in the next 30 days, hopefully before we meet with MassDOT. This is Attorney McGregor and Laguerre.
McGregor.
Right, McGregor and Laguerre. It's a consultative, it's solely for us at this point. I did give an option to the town administrator to participate in that. I don't know where that ended up, but nonetheless, we are continuing on that so that we as an association know all the potential ramifications of the work being done and any violations across state and.
Could Becky attend that? Because, that'd be really worthwhile.
The agreement is technically with our association.
Yeah.
We could, I'd have to ask for her allowed to be participating, because it's really, we're footing the bill for the things.
Okay.
Not that I
Yeah.
don't want Becky there, I'd
Yeah.
rather have Becky there,
Okay.
but
Just,
it's, the firm wanted to be advising us on all the ins and outs of the possibilities that might happen. They offered to do a similar session with the town, and I expressed that to the town administrator several months back as an option, but it's up to you guys if you want to pursue that or not. But I'll see, once I get a date, I'll see if Becky can attend as well, and if you can make it. It's going to be in Boston, and it's a half-day session where it goes through all the laws and potential violations that they're under.
Speaking of meetings, we have a representative for the Lakes Association who can attend your meetings now, because we moved the meetings to Tuesdays and you guys' meetings are on Thursdays.
Well, the SLAC meeting.
SLAC.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you tell us who your SLAC president is so our guy can get a hold of him?
Well, our representatives from Cedar Lake SLAC members are Tom Quinlan and also Lee Darren are our two representatives from Cedar Lake.
Oh, Lee Guerin is too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lee has attended a few of these
Yes, she has.
meetings as well, and she'll.
And
sub in.
McGregor.
Yeah, she will definitely attend that meeting, and she is our SLAC representative along with Tom Quinlan.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll have him get a hold of them.
Okay. That's good. Anything else that we didn't cover, Becky, or?
No.
So I'll keep it going off your cue as to whether work continues and.
Yep.
all right.
Or you need to have these approved, or what's the status of these plans?
So, right, the one revision that they want to move forward and include is the inclusion of the rock swale to replace the paved swale on the north side.
Right.
So,
Yep.
if you're in support of that. I think, like I said, I think that we'll have to kind of work out the details of that with the contractor on site, because I don't think we're gonna get anything else from them prior to doing that. But I think it will be a good improvement for the
I'm
short term.
comfortable with that plan there.
Yeah.
They've got to stop that asphalt from dropping into the lake, which is doing every day.
Yep.
So, these 3 things get done, I think, or at least, or the 4 things, they've already done the pipe. At
Looks
least we're
cleaner
in
there,
a-
over there already.
What's that?
It looks cleaner over there already.
It does, and at least being done this fall will put us in a better position for the spring runoff, which is usually when all hell breaks loose down there. Okay. So, and I'll start communicating. Becky and I will firm up the meetings and coordinate who's going to be there, and we'll coordinate and put together our agenda, because I'm sure they'll come with a blank stare. But we'll be prepared to talk through what we need to talk through. Okay?
Thanks, Ro.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing, Becky, do you have,
Holly has it, yeah.
okay, good. Thank you.
We already signed it. You're welcome.
We'll sign up when you.
All right, Beck, what do you want to do from here? We're at 7:20.
We have quite a few people here, so we have,
Take care.
Hamilton Rod and Gun Club, we have 9 Holland Road and 30 River Road.
Yep. Want to do 9 Holland next? He was,
Sure, I think he was here
Some of the
first.
people have
He
been
just
here
stepped
quite a
out,
while.
though.
yeah.
He's on the phone. All right, how about Hamilton Rod and Gun? I think it's a quick update, so, and Ramco, yeah, all right.
Josh Romano, Ramco.
So Jonathan just sent over a letter in an email. I just got it this evening, so I gave it to them. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I have not.
I mean, it's just kind of going over what he's planning on doing, probably what you're gonna talk about. I can give you a copy of it if you need it, or.
It's fine. It's
Okay.
probably the same thing that he told me earlier
Yeah,
today.
yeah. So just a quick summary, right? You came to one of the previous meetings within the past month.
I was here at the last meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
And 95% of it's stabilized, the property that we've reclaimed. There is a contractor working there now, working with the club.
Okay.
To kind of sew up some loose ends. And there is just kind of, it's a waiting game at this point, just to kind of
Okay.
let it stabilize itself and kind of revisit it in the spring, seeing as the growing season's over. And that's basically what I've been told. Still waiting on Burton for that as-built,
Okay.
to see the size of the ponds and the capacity of that.
Right, make sure that's consistent with the
Right,
plans
with the
approved
print.
and, okay.
And, yeah,
So there's no indication that you're going to remove the stones that are in the pond?
stone in the pond, that'll come back when Burton does the as-built.
But the detention basin is filled 1/3 of its capacity.
Are you sure it's 1/3?
I haven't measured it, no.
Okay, that's why we're waiting on Burton, from what I hear.
So yeah, we're, just to clarify, we're talking about the basin in the back.
The
Last time
large
you were
basin
here-
in the back,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
there was a conversation with the
Yeah,
Rod and Gun
and
Club
The
about
basin
removing
was
them.
sized correctly.
Yeah,
Which we're waiting to see, because it might have been overbuilt. And then where that capacity doesn't matter, where it'll take in the stormwater that they managed.
You do realize that that makes almost no sense. You build a stormwater capacity basin
Yeah.
to be used as a detention basin, and then you fill it.
We didn't fill it with rocks. No, there's a 20-yard rock in there, but we overbuilt and built the sides up to make the capacity over and above having that, besides moving that rock.
We're not talking about one rock.
What are you talking about?
There's a large number of stone in
No,
that.
on the top side, there's a large row of rock. Do we have pictures of that basin? Do we have pictures of it?
Have you been
Maybe
on
we're
the site?
Yeah, yeah. I pushed a loom over there.
Because I know what you're talking about, David. It seemed like there was a large number of rock debris in that.
might take me a couple minutes to find.
Take your time.
But I agree that if Burton Engineering comes back and says that there's plenty of capacity, then we probably don't have to worry about it, but.
Yeah.
So, have you guys seen a copy of Jonathan's letter today? Do you have anything you want to add as the property owner?
Kevin Susi, Hamilton Rod and Gun. I talked to Jonathan at 4 o'clock this evening, and Don and I, the biggest concern we had was the basin where we pull into the club on the right-hand side.
Right-hand side? Yeah.
Yep.
We had witnessed that at about 80% full. I think it was 2 weeks ago when we had some heavy rains. So we talked to Jonathan about that tonight, and he's a bulldozer and a payloader has showed up there this week. They're supposed to start tomorrow. I believe Scott, their contractor, is supposed to start tomorrow there, and working on up near the rifle range to straighten out what we wanted to do up there.
Where this basin is, or the berm?
Up above,
The
way
berm?
above
Oh,
the
the
riprap.
loam pile up on
Right,
top? Okay,
right.
yep.
And Don and I showed concern with because he hasn't heard back from Burton yet, with that first basin being 80% full.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonathan said tonight that he was going to make that bigger.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right, because
that's
now
the
this
one in
system
the end.
ties
That's
into
it.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's going to make it higher and larger, because that was one of our
That's a different basin.
biggest
Okay.
concerns.
Right, and I
This is
think
the one that's in
that,
the back.
That's the one in
Yeah.
the back.
Yeah.
He's talking
Right by
about
the
the one on
pond.
the right-hand side when you
No,
come in.
no, yeah, but the one that David was talking
Yeah,
about a few
that's what I'm
minutes ago.
saying.
Yeah.
That's not one rock.
Right, sorry.
Anything else?
so,
No,
moving the loam pile up on top,
Yep.
because of the time of year, what's your plan to make sure it's not gonna just wash out up there? What are you guys gonna do?
I was fairly, that wasn't hydrostated up at the top, the loam pile that was dozed?
No, it hasn't been moved yet. That's the one that needs to get moved up on top of the
Okay.
rifle range. So, I mean, we just wanna make sure that it's,
Yeah, that
you
it's
know, covered.
stabilized, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So make sure there's some plan for that.
He was talking like silt fence and hay bales to make sure it doesn't.
Okay,
Moves that
maybe
around
erosion
those
control
spaces
blanket
top.
on top of it, you can seat it,
Okay.
put the blanket on it.
Yeah.
I think it would be useful for the winter, especially we know we have a lot of runoff coming down that road, and we're
There's a
gonna
huge amount of
wash all
runoff
that
coming
out.
off of that.
Right. But
No, go
I
back
mean,
to
you're
that
saying it,
picture.
and he's saying, yeah, but are we communicating here that that's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Yep. So
Okay.
you're gonna, cover it?
I'm not gonna cover it, they're gonna cover
I'm
it.
saying.
We'll cover it.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
all right.
Right, I mean, I did go back out yesterday and did look, and these aren't the photos from yesterday, but, a lot of it has grown in, which I think is beneficial for the approaching winter.
Yep.
There's a lot of bare areas. I think that it's important, as I kind of put in my letter, that there's some commitment from Ramco, that they help monitor this over the winter, as kind of we set up when the enforcement order was issued, that there's a plan for someone to go out and check that. I did kind of quickly read this. He does acknowledge that he'll monitor during the winter, so we'll just have to work together to make sure that happens. I think that enlarging that basin down by the entranceway will be beneficial, because the system was tied into that.
Right.
We do need Burton to give that feedback on how that needs to be done to make sure that doesn't become an issue in the future.
Right.
And we'll need that before we sign off on it, and I think that the Board of Selectmen will need that too, so.
And can you go back to that picture of the basin in the back for a minute, please?
This one?
Yeah.
If it happens, that is correctly sized, then all of those rocks in it are going to be depleting the capacity of that detention basin from detentioning the water, from slowing the water down. And the water from the entire length of that road going down into that detention basin is supposed to be detained. So my argument is that those rocks should be removed now from that detention basin in order to give the detention basin a chance to work. If it happens to be oversized, that's better.
Isn't that rock pile outside of your buffer zone at this point?
It's in a detention basin, sir.
Oh, I agree. But
Why
if
would you
there's- if
fill a
everything-
detention basin?
I understand, but if the capacity around that pile of rocks
Excuse
still
me.
contains all
Ask
the
the
water it
question,
needs.
I would like an answer to the question. Why would you fill the detention basin with
We didn't fill it
something-
with rocks. It was not filled by rocks. We didn't place them there. They were there during the mining of gravel.
Oh,
Yep.
I thought maybe you were saying God had deposited the rocks there. Come on.
You did,
Somehow that
Well,
pile of rocks got put in
yeah.
the detention basin?
Yes.
Well, I think we'll have to look when Burton comes back with the plan. If it's not impacting, we don't worry about it. It's their property. It's up to them, I guess, and their contract, what to do with them. What is concerning in the back slope here, this is further from the resource area, so, you know, this will be probably all washed out and need to be dug out anyways by the time spring comes. But hopefully, you know, we won't see any impacts. We'll have to
Right, and
monitor
what
it as well.
stabilizes now, instead of going in there now and then creating a giant mess, let what's going to stabilize now stabilize, and then this next spring, revisit it when it has some roots in the ground. I think that's the better bet on that back wall there.
For the back wall?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it looks better than this picture. This is from October 24th, but it's still pretty bare, I think.
Yeah.
It was hydro-seeded, right. A lot of it, I think, washed off. So
Yeah,
they did hydro-seed it after our request. But I think it's going to need someone watching
It probably needs some attention, yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree.
Yeah.
This is the picture from November.
No, this is this is end of October. I don't have a recent November picture saved in here. When I went, I didn't save my pictures from my phone yesterday, so.
All right. All right.
All right, so,
Move along.
my letter, I did ask for this commitment. I think it does kind of overall outline a commitment from Ramco to keep an eye on this and
Yep.
finalize this project, so thank you.
Hi, John, Hamilton
Yeah.
Rugby Club. I just want to be sure, my concern is the size of that original old retention basin by the driveway, between the
Yep.
driveway and the lake, which, when we met out there last year, was going to be enlarged as soon as the
Burton
frost got
gave
out of
it.
the ground.
Right.
Understanding that Ramco doesn't have the engineering capacity because Burton isn't responsive, can we go ahead and enlarge this? I'm really,
Yeah.
I heard the Lake Association guy say, which is exactly what we saw last year, when the spring rains come,
Yeah.
that's the worst case. I don't want to go through another winter, spring like we had last year.
Yeah.
And if we can move ahead and enlarge that retention basin in size and depth, well, you don't have an engineer, I
Yeah.
mean, but I don't want to do something that's not allowed.
Right, no, we
I
did
think this
talk
is-
about that
I
before.
think we need to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I agree, and I think we talked about that before, that it, you know, because of the issue, we weren't getting something from the engineer.
I
that
understand. I mean,
Allowing them.
that's not their fault. I mean.
You agree with that?
I don't know.
I think we previously talked about it at a meeting and allowed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about this at a previous meeting and said that was
Yeah.
okay to Ramco to do that already.
Could we-
So that
could
way
we-
it can get
That's what I'm
done.
sure.
Yeah.
Question, directionally, not towards the water with the enlargement?
Yes.
Yeah, well, the intention would be to go
Parallel to the lake.
drive.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
I think you kind of have to there. And I think, right, concern, I don't know about how much deeper you can go there or not, but, right, you might have to
Yeah.
expand out and maybe to
That would
the
be the
sides
way
would be
anything has to
best.
go.
Honestly, I think if we go a little further toward the pavilion,
Yep,
I think that will take care of that lip where it overflows as well.
that would be good,
Okay.
yeah,
We can look
So you
at
have-
it.
you have-
Would you like us to give you a sketch of what we're doing?
sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, but I think equipment's out there, we can get a quick sketch. They've already kind of approved it, we talked about it at a previous meeting. I think we can do it, so
Okay, thank you.
Good.
I think that'd be a benefit. All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Nine Holland.
Yep.
You guys can come up.
9 Holland?
You guys are here first. All right, so just quick summary. So I had reported to me tree removal, clearing work occurring on 9 Holland Road. We went out there, noticed a good amount of trees along the river on that property, and adjacent property that had been removed, in addition to some clearing work on the property. There is a current permit on the property that was issued to the property owner and a different contractor as a result of multiple enforcement orders that were issued for that property in 2015 and 2016. Orders of conditions were issued to do some restoration work out there. There was some drainage improvements that need to be done and some cleanup out there. So that kind of sat, that permit was issued early 2017. Some of the work was done. That was left as is. And then, you know, we had previously been contacted about someone who was interested in the property. We saw a draft concept plan for that redevelopment, but that was it for it. So I had reached out to met a gentleman out there and the contractor and also the property owner, informed the commission. Once the commission went out there on our site visits, wanted to issue an enforcement order for the unpermitted work that occurred out there. So if you want to introduce yourselves and your involvement in the...
Yes, my name is Richard Conley, and I met with the owner in August and agreed to oversee and manage the cleanup of the debris and the securing of the building. And one of the first things I did was I hired Clifford to just clean up some of the brush in the center of the field so I could see the piles of debris and just, you know, clear the backfield and clean up the driveway up to the gate so I could see that just the largeness of what I noted on the plan that was submitted to conservation. It's by Burton Engineering. It was submitted on April 10th. This is actually one of your copies, received May 31st, 2016. So I addressed cleaning up a couple of the piles of debris. The one closest to Holland Road that was in the field where there was a storm drain pipe that was dug up by a previous tenant and the contractor, who I believe had a stroke, and that's why he didn't finish the work he did.
Mr. Parquet?
Mr. Parquet.
Yeah.
And
Parquet had a stroke?
yes, that's what I believe. That's what the owner told me. And,
Sorry to hear that.
And I don't know him, and I'm sorry to hear it, but that's why this project's been hanging. So I agreed to come in tonight just to give the input on what I was overseeing there. Basically just cleaning up the property, securing the doors, fixing leaks in the roofs, and patching up the windows to keep people out, making sure the gates are back together. And during the interim, to get the dumpsters in, I had Clifford come through and brush hog so we could actually see where the driveways were. We didn't really do any work outside of that in the first month and a half. And the owner called me one day and said that the broker says that we're not doing enough work, so he hired a landscaper, which would be William Cody.
Okay.
That's known to him, and they come in and started cleaning up the poison ivy on the building so I could assess the damage to the bricks. Now, the building was completely engulfed with poison ivy and invasive plants that have grown up over the past 30, 40 years. And so I had that landscape worker clean the stuff off the building, and along the drive, which would be along the river from the south side of the building, along the whole perimeter of the main building, he cut 5 or 6 trees that were hazard trees on the edge of the driveway. There was 2 pines, there was 2 cedar trees, and then in front of a maple tree, right where the debris pile's noted, he cut about a 4-inch tree that was grown over. We couldn't even get our trucks by to work. But and then further up the driveway towards the main gate, he cut 2 cedar trees that were just on the edge of the driveway. They were about this big. And then he asked about the dead pine trees at the beginning of the driveway going to Route 20. He cut 2. I don't know. How big were those pine trees, do you think?
About 32 inches.
2 pine trees. One of them hit the tree in front of it, which is about a 12-inch tree. So he asked if he could cut that. I said, well, it's damaged. It's going to be in the way of the driveway repair. I don't see a problem with it. And that was the extent of my instruction with him. Then the owner asked for him to clear further up the fire road to take the dead trees out. And then I said, well, you might as well clean up to where the storm drains have the plywood on it, but just cut the dead trees. So that's what I was aware. Anything beyond the point of the area that I had him working in, on this map. And I asked the owner where the boundary was. He couldn't exactly tell me where it was, and I stayed, the work that I instructed him to do, I stayed within the boundary lines, but apparently he went on to the next lot and cut dead trees around where the storm drains have the plywood covers and the cones are at.
So you can give the detail of the diameter reach of the trees all the way through the lot, and you got them, but on the other, gets to the other end, you got them clearing on somebody else's
I
property?
didn't have him clearing on anybody else's property. I didn't have him clearing.
If you have that much detail, you didn't see where the property ended?
I was going by this map. I was just looking at the map. And the owner hired them. I didn't hire them to do landscape, and I said, you can cut the dead trees. I didn't know where the property line was. I said, just clear the road. There's a fire road there. I mean, I went up and seen it, and I was a little shocked myself, because everything else was so selective and limited, and I saw that, and I wasn't even aware of it till after I had talked with Becky. I mean, I'm not there every day, sir.
No, well, we call, I'll give you a hint, we call it Vista Pruning.
What's that?
Vista Pruning. The real estate agent wanted people to be able to see that when they see the place when they drove by. So he cut on somebody else's property.
Well, I wasn't aware of that he was on the other property at all. What I instructed him to do was up to the dead pine trees in that area there and along the driveway.
Okay.
And I came today just to give,
Yeah.
I wasn't on the agenda tonight. William Cody was. I just came in to give a summary and introduce Clifford because I hired him, and he gave me the understanding of the perimeters of what you can cut, what the owner can cut up to the wood, and I don't know, what is it, the cordwood and the lumber, Clifford?
Sturbridge has a special law that you actually can't cut anything within 200 feet without your permission.
Right.
Yep.
It's not a special law.
What's that?
It's not a special law. It's a law.
No, it's 100 feet for the state.
100
it's
feet for the
200
state,
feet for
200
us.
for the town.
That's what it's referred to
Yeah.
as special for
Yeah.
Sturbridge. It's not that way in other towns and stuff. But I'm not the one that was hired. I didn't cut any trees over there. They asked me to come in tonight so I could explain
Okay.
what went on for the proceedings or whatnot.
Right.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Becky, does the,
Where were you?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. You don't have anything further, right? I mean,
No, I mean, we issued the enforcement order. There's items in the enforcement order that we asked for cease and desist. It appears that you guys have stopped doing work out there. We asked that someone attend this meeting, develop a remediation plan, and identify all areas of work which deviated from the approved plans. So I think we do need to get a good understanding of that, but also just wanted to add to, the whole thing's within a riverfront area, so it's a 200 state jurisdictional area, because riverfront's a resource area. But I think that a lot of this could have probably been avoided had you guys contacted us and said, we're going back out there, we're, want to clean up this area, we want to understand to make sure that we're doing everything we can. I know you came in July and reviewed the file, so you knew there was a lot of, there was a permit that was issued and some enforcement issues out there.
I came in August, and that's why I got the plans, so I could address the debris cleanup and just,
Yeah. Well, you
secure
said
the
you were
building. That was my main
potentially- Yeah,
focus.
you didn't say you were going to work on the property, you just said that you were interested in the property potentially, so. But just saying, a lot of the cleanup things, I think, would have been covered under the permit anyways, but it's just the additional tree removal, which appears to be what their concern is, so.
And it's my concern too as well, and it's the owner's concern, because, I wasn't aware that he was that far up the road until after I seen it.
well, that's what brought it to our attention, too.
No, I
Because brush clearing had been being done down there for, when Ed Parquette was involved. I think it was fine, what they were doing. And they had approval to do it.
I believe all the brush clearing on the whole parcel, until you extend beyond the property line, was just brush clearing and taking out dead trees and stuff. We didn't, I instructed him just to take the minimum stuff that was in the driveway and the dead stuff out.
Yeah.
And to take the vines, the owner wanted the vines off the fence, and I needed the poison ivy off the building and the vines so we could see the extent of the masonry work. That was my focus, and we got that done. So I came here tonight to just give whatever information I could to you, and I guess, you know, the landscape company, William Cody, they have instructions not to cut anymore, and they're waiting to, you know, I'm surprised he wasn't at the meeting. I didn't know what they were gonna have to say tonight.
So the plan that, this is not a wetlands question, but the plan that we approved for the combination housing and retail didn't come to fruition on that property?
To the best of my knowledge, and this is right from the owner, Richard Bonaventura, he's given them till the first of the year to make a decision.
Make a decision, okay.
So it's still pending, and we cleaned the property up for two reasons. For safety and security, there was vandals in the building, and it needed to be secured, and to keep it from deteriorating, and getting it ready for redevelopment, because if that deal falls through, we have other parties waiting to come in.
Yeah.
And that's why I came on board.
Yeah.
And I did come in August to pull the file and review it the week before I went to meet the owner. I went to his home in Westport and met him, and I gave him a bird's eye of what I thought needed to be done to the building to make it safe and secure, and diligently, he's been attending to that. We're just winding down. I'm leaving Friday, and the landscaper's still there. They're buttoning up the windows and stuff, the worker. He's not doing landscaping, but we expected him to be chipping the debris pile that's on the concrete slab, and we had to stop him. I was wanting that whole area cleaned up before I left, but I'm gonna have to wait till spring because of the stop work order. But that's one of the things that they'll be addressing with the board when they come in front of you.
No problem. Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
We pulled all the debris out of it. It's ready to be just cut and chipped.
Yeah, well, back underneath and everything all enclosed on the building?
Pretty much, there's just one door, the white garage door, that we have to get down. Everything's locked and secured, and the windows are being boarded up and secured, or plastic being put in, so there should be, it's very difficult to get entry in now. They'd have to climb.
Yeah.
Once more of the windows are secure, they'll have to break in again. It's pretty...
No reason to go in, other than get hurt if it was a kid.
No, 90% of the goods that were inside's gone. There's less than 10% of the antiques in there now. They pretty much smashed, stole quite a bit of it.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yes.
That's too bad.
Well, it happens when you leave a place that long. I mean, I believe this property was just on hold. It was dormant because of the promise of CVS buying it. The owner was just held hostage with it over the years. I don't know how he got the foreclosure deed and any of the dynamics of that. I'm just an abutter. I live up in Holland, and I've been waiting for something to happen with the building positive, and I just offered to come in and do it.
Yeah, good. All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay, I'm gonna be traveling, but can I ask you just to CC me what's going on, so I can intervene with the owner? I do communicate with him a few days a week, because if it doesn't sell by the 1st, we're gonna bring some parties forward. All right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Becky, does the adjacent property owner know about the tree clearing yet?
Yes, I did. He actually did come into the office, so I did let him know about it and let him know what our actions were up to
Can
date.
you
So.
send me his excuse me, can you
Yes.
send me his
Yep.
contact information so I can talk with him and
Okay.
see
Yep.
between him and the owner what's going on, what they can do to resolve this, to make sure it happens?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Take care. What next?
Yeah. I think they're all together,
Oh,
so.
they're here, let's go. River Road.
Good evening. Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech, Jimmy Piappi.
What are you, an executive speaker? How you doing?
Good, you?
Good.
Thank you. So we figured we'd just come in, give the commission an update. Some of the recent issues, they're essentially at this point, they're kind of putting everything back together. Kind of most of the utilities are done. Kind of wrapping that up, probably about 80% or so with water and sewer. Up on the higher sides, they're completing the sites and kind of working their way back, kind of wrapping things up. I did want to also kind of mention, bring up some erosion control measures. I think you were out there during that last rainstorm, and we just kind of wanted to update. They've done quite a bit of work. They've installed a temporary sediment pond that you've probably seen. in between lots 202, 203. So if you remember, if you recall, kind of where you pull into the lot, there's a low spot where the water kind of flows down kind of the existing roadway and then dumps off where there's some riprap where that concrete sluiceway used to be. So the intent of this basin is to kind of hold back that water and give it an area to redirect it into this basin. So there's kind of a two-cell basin before it would discharge to the stream. So
Where's it gonna go?
ultimately goes to the stream, but it's kind of a two-cell basin so that water will go into it, fill that. Some of it will infiltrate. There's a second, it's kind of like a small spillway and a second containment area, so you get some additional infiltration before it gets discharged. So some treatment in there as well. They've also cleaned, vacked out the storm scepter along with the 13 other catch basins on the site. So they had a crew up there cleaning out all those basins. They intend to inspect those and clean those out as needed going forward to make sure that those are clean. The pipe coming out of the storm scepter, they noticed that there was water trickling out after the rain had stopped. So there was water getting into that, infiltration getting into there. So today they were out there, they just pulled it out and are simply replacing that pipe because there's water's getting in there somehow and you don't want that to occur. So the plan is they've replaced that pipe so that there won't be any groundwater infiltration into that system.
Same type of piping?
Different piping. The first one was the corrugated plastic,
Yep.
like the ADS pipe. They've changed it to the 10-inch. It's like the sewer pipe, the green pipe.
Okay.
So it's
It's gasket joint, tight
Yeah.
joint pipe. The
So
other
it's-
pipe is silt tight.
Is it less flexible?
Yes.
yes, much. They also added some stone and some of the, obviously stone within the temporary stormwater basin. Added some stone on a couple of those entrance roads along where those, as you pull into the site, kind of the main, where the trailers are, they added some stone in there to stabilize some of those roadways. Added fabric and stone to the main street. And then also they plan to put a turbidity curtain at the outlet of the stormwater as like a secondary containment. So right at that outlet where it discharges right near into the stream, so they'll add that.
Wait, go back. Where's the turbidity curtain going?
You know where the storm scepter discharges is a flared end unit,
Yeah.
just upstream from where the bridge is that goes across the brook.
Okay.
Just above the duck pond,
Yeah.
right there. So where that discharges, they'll put
No,
a,
just downstream of the bridge. Downstream of the bridge.
That makes more sense.
yes, sorry.
on the other side of the bridge.
Okay.
Below where all the drainage outfalls are.
Yeah.
Yep. So right,
I thought it was above that.
no. No need to intercept
Okay.
that clean water. My apologies. So right there. The other thing we've done since I've met with the commission is they pulled out the dam. So the dam work's been pulled out, stone installed. I actually went out, I was there today inspecting it after we've had some significant rains. It's working perfectly. There's no evidence of erosion. They hydroseeded and seeded that back slope where they had used for access. That's all been stabilized. You got grass growing in there, so it looks really good in there. I don't know if Becky's had a chance to take a look at that, but it's.
I've walked in there.
Yeah, don't you agree? It came out nice.
It's not that stable. I mean, it's all, it's just soaking. You go into, what, high ankle, would you say?
It has firmed up and grass is growing.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah.
grass was there, and the.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised
soft.
if that, where the duck pond was, remains soft.
But my concern is that that's gonna continue to, wash off.
Yes.
We put a whole bunch of stone to prevent that from happening. So essentially, where the dam came out, backfill with stone down to the bottom, up to the top, so that the stone will hold back that material, so it will prevent it from getting wicked. If you don't put that stone in there, you just put stone on top of it, anytime you get a heavy rainstorm, it's just gonna cut a path through there and undercut the whole thing.
Right.
But essentially what happened was, they installed, so the dam came out, dam was here, here was where the pond was, dam came out, this area here was all backfilled with heavy stone up to the elevation where the mud in the former pond is. So that what happens is, the stream flows.
When did you do that?
Over that stone. What's that?
When did you do that?
And the dam was made?
When the dam was removed. What was that?
Early to mid-October, because it was
We had
October
the
15th or so.
was the deadline. I think
14th?
the 15th was the Monday, so
Yeah.
we did it the 13th.
12th, 13th.
12th or 13th.
13th, yeah.
So it's been about a month. We've had some significant rains. There's some significant flow coming through there today. No evidence of erosion, crystal clear water, so. We can keep an eye on that just to make sure that there's no changes.
You have to talk a little louder into the mic.
Sorry about that.
Our public loves your voice, come on.
I'm sure they do. So that's essentially kind of an update. Like I said, he's, moving forward to finalizing things, getting things buttoned up, loam, on, site stabilized, loam, seed, erosion control blankets, so it's
I'm gonna go back
progressing,
to
coming
those-
down the home stretch.
Go back to those initial 2 little basins that you talked about.
Yeah, do you have a,
I took a picture of it today.
One of
but I
the
actually
things I'm
didn't
curious about,
have
though,
time to send it to
both of those
myself.
basins are right in clay trough. That's all clay material, isn't it?
I haven't seen any
So-
clay on the site. It's either ledge or nice coarse gravel.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it seemed to me the last time I was there, my cane slipped, and I thought it was clay.
It might have been the organic material at the surface.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't seen any clay on
Probably
that site.
duck.
Yeah. it was- That's
I
you're
didn't
probably
want to go
right.
there, okay?
So I can try to find some plans and show them exactly where it is, but I have,
What I'm concerned about is, if in fact it's not going to drain by itself, how much of that is going to add to the water that's going into the flow? Is it going to be significant if we have like a 2-inch rainfall?
No, I wouldn't. I think it would probably capture everything from a 2-inch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking about real storage?
Yeah, it's decent size. It's probably the size of one of the campsites.
Oh, okay.
It's easily half the size of this room, 3/4 the size of this room, and it has an overflow trough behind it.
Yeah, that's what I meant, is it significant
The
enough?
overflow trough is about that size as well, but it's lengthy as opposed to round.
Right.
You have a round pond.
yeah, we can just show them where it is.
Yeah,
on
so
there.
Okay.
to get you oriented, here's River Road. You'd come up the entranceway,
Yeah.
turn, and then if you hook this left,
Yeah.
this is where Duck Pond is. That discharge point comes out to about here, that flared end section.
Yeah.
That basin is right in here.
Okay, and where's the overflow?
The overflow is
Right
along
there.
is about right there. So, it goes from here back to pretty much the edge of the road there. And then there's a small pipe that goes underneath the road, so anything that comes down can go through this pipe underneath the road, so it's not eroding the road, and then into that temporary pond in there.
Where did you put the silt screen again?
We have it, we're going to install it.
Yeah, we didn't want to do anything without talking to you.
Okay, so
But it
where
would
is
be
it?
right at the flared end section right here.
Right there, okay.
Correct?
I thought we'd install it below the bridge.
Jimmy?
On this side?
Oh, this right here?
Yeah, because there's.
Mr. Piappi?
Yeah, that's,
You gotta move up so that they hear you
Yeah.
on the mic, please.
my apologies. We can install it right here.
Right, because then you're gonna catch anything here
Yep.
that's coming in, so, yeah.
That would be preferred.
Yeah, so I think they've made great improvements. So, I mean, I've shared with the commission that, I went out there last Thursday, some really significant concerns, which are shown in those photos, with all that stormwater entering the stream in the condition it is, which we know is, not allowable, which is a concern. So, I met Phil out there. We immediately talked about what he could do at that time to make some improvement, while work is continuing there. Went back out there. They were already working, which was great, to try to address some of those things. Phil gave this response today, which I did share with the commission. I don't know if they've had a chance to read it all yet, because it kind of just came in today. But I think that, what I was trying to convey is, I think that it's great these improvements we're making, but we just want to make sure too that, the engineers are on board, kind of looking at things. A lot of these things are going to be temporary. Any permanent changes, I think we just need to make sure that that's consistent with the plan that's approved for the stormwater management there. But it sounds like, those things could be improvements. But we'd have to just confirm that, I guess, for any of those type of changes. Some of the big concerns, what I saw was water coming down the roadways here. This one was a big concern, washing out this way. I think what was implemented, trying to get everything away from that roadway that goes over the bridge. We talked about today, went back out there this evening before the meeting to look at the things that they've done since my last site visit. And I think that the things you've implemented that we talked about, I think, are really good improvements. What was really concerning, and it sounds like maybe you've investigated and discovered what the cause of that was all the turbidity and the stormwater coming out of the actual pipe. Not maybe what was getting underneath or not, but it sounds like replacing that pipe was broken or whatnot, and maybe groundwater was getting in there, and that was the problem. I think that we'll just have to, like we discussed, as with storm events coming up, just keep an eye and make sure that everything is going to work sufficiently. We talked about today too, maybe a couple ideas where the old house, the red house, was near the duck pond, and trying to get, because we know that a lot of trucks going in now. We got a lot of dirt coming down that roadway.
Yeah, right in
right.
here is a
Yep.
depression.
Yep.
So we can direct some of the water into that.
Yeah.
So there'll be some
Yep, and I also
filtering, and then kind of wrap an erosion control barrier
Exactly.
on that other side.
Yeah, especially because we didn't have a silt fence here because there's a road there. So, and everything ended up kind of going that way. Didn't realize, the extent of how bad it was, I guess. But now that we can probably get one in there because it was dug up, I think that's going to be a good improvement. So they brought some material in to bring the roadway up a little bit here and try to pitch things a little bit differently. But what we were talking about today is, right, a lot of what's coming down here is going to get captured here. And then this area, I think, is still a concern, but I think if we can do something here and direct it that way, I think that would be a good improvement during construction. And then, revert back to the original plans for the stormwater.
So this was not originally intended to be a basin, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So this is something we're adding because of the issues that we have on site now.
It's really needed, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's just a
Absolutely.
temporary measure. though.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were even discussing out there, like, typically we'd be looking for things like that in our plans when they come in versus these discharges to streams. So if somehow something like that could be incorporated, I was saying to Phil, that might not be a bad thing versus a direct discharge to a stream if he wanted it, but it would have to be something that would be looked at and discussed. But it could be a good improvement in the long run if decided to be kept, but that's up to you guys, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we can leave it in place, get things wrapped up, and see if it's even needed at that point.
So, I guess just like I said, I think the improvements that were made over the weekend are great, and hopefully that's going to resolve kind of the issue we were seeing there with stormwater leaving the site. But, one of our last meetings, one of the residents down the road did come forward and say that he had been seeing these issues happen for quite some time. So I think this is something, it's not a singular event, and that's something that the commission needs to understand, is the silt and sediment that's left the site. We know we've talked about it at our last meetings about it being in the stream, seeing the amount of sediment in there. What kind of silt impact are we having on our downstream resource areas? I think that's important for the commission to understand, because it appears that this has been kind of going on for some time. I think the first photo that resident had taken, might not have been the first time, I don't know, it was last April. So it was long before the dam broke. But I think it's important that we make sure that we haven't impacted those resource areas. And if so, there's some assessment of that and maybe some cleanup effort too to think about. So,
How do we assess that?
well,
You can't move away from the mic when you talk, please.
I'm stretching my legs out.
do you have any suggestions?
Good question. Obviously a lot's happened since. One of the big things is the dam breaching, which I think probably moved some sediment downstream. I'd say, keep an eye on it to make sure that, when we've got rainstorms, to make sure that, water's flowing clear. Kind of maintain and monitor that. We can take a look at the stream to see if there's any, sediment collection areas that may need to be cleaned up, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it at one of the last meetings. I've gone through there with one of the commissioners, and it does appear there's a lot of sediment in the stream. That might be mostly a result of the dam removal, but it doesn't appear to be the native material. So I do recommend that we look at that to make sure we haven't impacted a resource area. The silt, I think that, maybe there's a qualified person looks at that and gives an evaluation. If there's some accumulated silt in there, that could, be causing impacts to the interests of that area, so.
That's not the first time we've asked for that.
We've discussed it, right, and it was included as part of the discussion
Right.
before towards understanding.
Yeah, because I had looked at it before, and I didn't see, I think it was right after the dam had let go, I think is when I inspected it.
Yeah, I think we asked you to then.
And I couldn't, it's difficult to discern the difference between, native substrate and if something was added to that. I didn't see any evidence that there was substantial accumulations
In the pond?
downstream from the pond. Obviously, the pond's got a.
Oh,
this
I'm talking
pond,
about
you
this
mean?
pond, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see. Usually, when there's a significant plume that when you've got sediment, even when the water, weeks later when the water's cleared up, you can see like a tinge on the bottom of the pond, which I haven't seen in this pond. It could be just a matter of, given the soils on the site where you got coarse sandy materials that probably have a little bit of silt in there. Sometimes you can get a tiny amount of silt in the water column and it just travels forever. And makes the pond, would make the pond look like that, but the amount of volume in that is a tiny amount, and it pretty much kind of gets flushed through. That's probably likely given the fact that I've looked at the pond and I haven't seen any discoloration or evidence of sediment accumulations on the bottom of the pond.
So if the person that owned that pond came to you as an engineer to assess the damage to his pond, to go after the person upstream who had done it, you would say there was no problem?
I'd take some core samples to look to see if there was substantial evidence of sediment accumulations on top. And like I said, there's no evidence that there's accumulations. What I would say was, first, look at where it's coming from and get it to stop. And the second would be that, when you do have that material, it's obviously a discoloration, but not necessarily a significant amount of material that actually.
But take some core samples before you make comments.
Right.
I mean, the resident of that property did provide
Morrow,
quite a
grab the
few.
microphone. I know you can't
Photos.
resist, but take the portable and sit back down. The public wants to hear you, but you've got to be public about it.
Okay, very good.
Well, you can sit with it, be comfortable.
No,
I
take
would
it out and
just-
go sit down.
Sit down?
Yeah,
but
take
pull
the
the
mic out.
microphone out. It won't break.
There's nobody else here.
I would just say that the problem of ascertaining what's going on in the downstream pond is proliferated by the 150 to 200 feet of stream that runs between River Road and the culvert that goes into the pond, for which there are no controls whatsoever. Just a very minor point.
Yeah, it is a minor point.
And we've seen,
I walked that stream today, and I also looked for because there was a comment in the report that River Road was a part of the silting into the,
I just said potential runoff.
yeah,
from River
I
Road.
couldn't see anywhere on River Road that had a directional flow of any kind into into the pond.
There's also another disqualifier.
Yeah.
The River Road has not changed. So what River Road might have been contributing to the lake, it's been contributing forever, so the person would have noticed if there was a significant change.
Yeah.
Instead, what they noticed was there was a significant change from the upstream source. Unfortunately, the upstream source was you all.
I mean, I just think, right, there's a lot of events that he's reported when he came to us in September throughout the year. I think that it's just some type of evaluation, some written statement, if you did go out and look at it with doing some sampling or whatnot, I think that would be valuable for the commission to determine if some type of impacts happen to this resource area.
Because I did look at that report. I think it was with the dam removal protocol that we put together, is when I looked at that, which was, I'd have to go back through my notes, but.
That's a while ago.
Yeah, but it wasn't that, I think that, it was
July.
June, July?
I think, right, you just said that you went and you walked to the pond, you looked at it, pretty much. I don't think it talked about a comprehensive survey or anything, so.
Yeah, we'd have to get permission from the property owner to do something like that, but.
I don't remember that was ever really discussed amongst us, anyway.
We asked for that. We did ask for them to look at that after the
Right.
dam let go and.
But I know that the way Nick has been operating, he would have called us and said, hey, is it all right for these guys to come and take a peek?
Yeah.
Because he's very nervous.
I would maintain simply that with the improvements that we've made over the weekend, with the improvements that we'll make as we move to stabilize over the winter for construction, and once we get the site built out, the issue of any kind of turbidity in our water will really dissipate. That's our hope. And I think we have a good plan. We've brought Mr. Piapi on board to help us with our grading and get our water flows right. I think he's built a few roads over his experience, and he's had a lot of really valuable kind of boots on the ground input as to how we can solve any and all problems.
Some of the people in town who are construction people on roads, they measured their roads in thousands of feet. Mr. Piapi does his in miles.
Right.
One comment I have is I have to agree with his comment on, the type of material that's been used for road work is very good, high-quality material, but it doesn't take, the fines in it are so fine that tiny amounts of it discolor an awful lot of water. And the color of it does too.
So what kind of fines are they?
Well, it's because it's all crushed material.
Yeah, so you end up with fines like.
So is it a crushed bituminous?
No, it's crushed rock. I mean, it's like the highest quality road material you can use, but unfortunately, the stuff that's like under a 200 sieve is so powdery.
Okay, so it is a powder.
Just a tiny amount of it, and like especially the first time it gets rained on, it has a capability of discoloring a lot of water without having a lot of sediment.
Wouldn't that just give a cloud to the surface of the water and then dissipate?
Yes, without, I'm not gonna say there isn't any impact, but minimal. It looks much worse than it is.
Like I've collected in like a 1 liter bottle, not this particular site, but other sites where.
Okay, but it stays on the surface.
So literally you take a sample of it, you put it on your desk, and it'll stay in solution for weeks.
In suspension.
In suspension for weeks. And then a month or two goes by, and there'll literally be like a dust, it looks like a dusting along the bottom, the very bottom of that bottle.
But that's not colored, that's not dark. That's a creamy white.
It can be different colors, like the crushed rock, you can get like a white, but some of the other soils, you'll get like it looks like a coffee color.
Well, you just said it was crushed rock.
I think the silting that we've seen here
yeah.
maybe is a combination because they've been adding road base, but I think a lot of it is because the ground's exposed on the project site too.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's a combination. I don't think it's just the
I
road
was
base.
picking
But
at straws, sorry.
That's what I would agree
I will also note that one of the things that we've discussed during construction is in the area in front of the resort center, where a lot of the sheet flow would go into what will be a parking lot. It used to be the red house and that little detention pond that's up there. That detention pond won't grab it all. So our intention is to cover that area with what was the term?
We're gonna use like a hard packed gravel that typically has much less of those fines in it. We use it on gravel town roads all the time and have excellent results with less turbidity in the runoff.
Really small?
Yeah, fine, tight.
Hard packed gravel, I saw a little sample of it today, and it doesn't have the fines, and even though the fines are minimal, we can put a different product in that area that will have no fines. And then we can grade back into the resort and handle the stormwater that way.
Rolled or just laid?
Rolled.
Yeah, you want to compact.
Temporary or permanent changes? You don't know yet?
It would be a base, and we could, if necessary, pave over.
Yeah.
It would be a great base to put a 2-inch overlay on.
In places we're replacing, using it in places that were paved, that area appears that it was, to me, that it was paved.
It was, yeah. It's supposed to be
So part of the problem is, water probably always ran through there on pavement, and it's not. So, excuse me, we're gonna try to regrade it to direct the water into the stormwater system. Some of it was missing because the grade was kind of beat up during construction and overlooked.
Yeah.
So if some of the intention is to absorb some of it, why would you want to pave over it? Would it not be better to leave it as?
You won't get any significant absorption in that way. I mean, I wouldn't say that realistically you get any significant absorption in any compacted roadway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the absorption's over where the house was, where that detention.
In areas that aren't that
worked so well
compacted.
last winter.
Yeah.
So it's so well compacted that the spaces are gone.
Right. That's what compaction, exactly, that's what compaction is.
Yeah, it sounds like that's
Anything
a
else?
good improvement, but, right, any changes that affect the stormwater system, the design, let's just make sure that an engineer's overseeing that and making sure it's consistent with what was designed for that area. So I keep going back to that.
Yeah.
I'd say overall, what we tried to do simply is, during this construction phase, you can't foresee everything. And we saw the problem, we acted on it pretty rapidly, and now we're in the process of coming down the home stretch, finishing our construction, but buttoning down the property for the winter, and then finishing off in the spring, when really we'll have minimal site work to do, and the main focus will be on our wastewater treatment facility.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Well, the only thing that we haven't resolved is our lawyer has indicated that we should not use an MOU. He has indicated, this is a town lawyer, not an individual lawyer. He's indicated that we should use an enforcement order. So what I did was go back and make changes to the MOU so that it's an enforcement order instead, and it's still basically the same thing, Phil. It says, an independent arborist shall be hired. The arborist, an independent arborist will be hired to assess the current tree health before November 19th, before the end of November 19th, before November 2019. Also to continue this assessment on a biannual basis through November 2023. This assessment is for trees in the buffer zone and the riverfront area. This assessment is to be paid for through a surety bond to be taken out by PLRV in the amount of $15,000. Replacement trees, including planting with this arborist supervision, to be paid for by this bond. In the riverfront area downstream from the dam and the duck pond, sediment has migrated further down, and all the rest of that wording stays exactly the same. Nothing else changes.
That's a pretty radical change from me paying for it out of a bond versus, I believe the first language that I heard was that you guys were going to pay for it.
That we were going to pay for the arborist.
Right.
Which is what I had intended. Our lawyer said that that is not appropriate. I don't know how to get around this. So it still becomes an open question. What we're worried about, and I think you understand it, is in the areas where trees have been removed, it is, in our opinion, likely that a number of trees are still going to come down or become seriously impacted. And we would like to be able to make certain that the areas that are under our control get replanted appropriately. And we'd like to do it for that 3-year period of time, and you seem to be in agreement with that. I just don't know how to get to it. You know that magical get to it thing?
Well, there's a foreign concept that we're running a little thin on, and that would be trust. That I want what you want. That I want a well-forested, attractive RV resort. Trees are an integral part of that. And I've made a commitment to replant and restore, how many trees, Scott?
No, we understand that part of it.
And I realize that more may die.
Right.
And then we get into the issue that I raised last time about, gee, did that die because of something that
Correct.
happened 2 years ago? Or is that just the tree giving up? Or is that a wind event or another weather event?
That's where you and I were nodding our heads in assent, saying an independent arborist should come in and be able to make that decision for us, the board, and you, to make everybody happy.
Right. And,
So if we can figure that out, then
and
things
we
would be
would
great.
estimate maybe how many trees in the jurisdiction area that would need to be analyzed? 500?
Probably.
I have no idea that. Scott?
It's probably a pretty good estimate.
About 500 trees, so we're going to label and mark 500 trees. We're going to evaluate and quantify the degree of health of the tree at this point in time, and then compare that degree of health at this point in time, 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road, 1.5 years down the road, on out for 3 more years. To me, that seems almost unmanageable, to be honest. It sounds really expensive to catalog 500 trees, to analyze those 500 trees for twice a year, to determine their health. It's just, it's a hard standard. My heart is into having a well-treed resort. I've agreed to replant over 300 trees, I believe.
Sounds about right.
And if I have to plant 300 more, it's not a big deal. I'll plant them.
So maybe the solution is that for every additional tree that comes down, we either have a 1-to-1 replacement or a 2-to-1 replacement.
Comes down because of a windstorm, comes
Any-
down
for
because
any
of,
reason.
for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Any reason
That
whatsoever.
seems a little broad.
But you just said that you'd be willing to plant an additional.
Yeah, I
300
would,
trees.
but
So
I mean,
I'm sure we're not going to lose, 300 more trees.
So that would be right within the spectrum of what you're looking for.
The
No, we
I
don't
believe
have to
there
worry
was
Right?
a
It would be,
tornado.
wouldn't it? You just said,
No, I know. If I have to plant 300 more trees, Mr. Chairman, I would do so.
yeah, so what we're looking for is I have to, if these trees die, that we get them replaced. And you're saying you won't replace them, but you'll put some other trees in, which doesn't make, just say you'll replace them.
Generally speaking, if I was at fault, I would absolutely replace them.
Generally
If
speaking,
I'm not at fault, then it's a judgment call as to how many trees we need to replace.
generally speaking, you are at fault. You went in there and you scraped all of the loam all around all of those trees, and you, generally speaking, are at fault.
I respect your opinion.
Yeah, that's my opinion. And so then, generally speaking, if you would agree to replacing trees that died within, 200 feet, then you're doing what you want to do.
I would make that agreement except for a weather event. If a tornado comes through there.
Oh, that would be absolutely, I agree with you completely.
If it's a weather-related event, and I will say, just the big windstorms we had a week ago, we lost, I think, 3 or 4 trees.
Yes.
They were healthy trees. They were.
Yeah, but they probably were around where you cleared, so that.
No, they weren't.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can make an exception for a tornado or hurricane.
Tornado, yeah, absolutely.
Or high winds.
No, because the problem is that you cleared all of these trees out and you compromised the trees that you left. So, I go out to that site and I look at some of the trees that are left, and I have no idea why this one tree, when there were, 50 trees in this area, this one tree was left, and and it looks like a crappy tree to me, and I'm not a tree expert. So I don't understand, and because it doesn't have all these other trees that are protecting it in these high wind events,
It's gonna come down.
It's going to come down. So you're saying, that you're exempt if high winds come in, but the problem is that you created a situation where many of the trees that are in our jurisdiction could come down in a high wind event. So I'm personally not willing to make that exception. If a tornado comes through there, I totally agree.
Hurricane comes through, totally.
Hurricane,
Absolutely.
but just a thunderstorm comes through, some random thunderstorm, you may lose some of those trees because of the actions that were taken.
lightning, you let them.
No. I'm willing to
Good
say,
point.
I'm willing.
We believe that one of the 4 trees that did come down last week was hit by lightning. And we've seen other trees that have been hit by lightning that are already scarred.
So here's what happens. You're going to have to come back to us to request to cut down trees or to cut up trees that fall down or whatever. Right? He's going to have to come back and have us at least take a look at it. So when that happens, we can make a judgment call as to what, we think. We're not going to be unreasonable about this, but, I don't.
That's a better approach.
I agree with you that it doesn't make sense to have an arborist go out there and try to catalog all these trees. Okay, that's overkill. Let's just deal with it. If more trees fall down, it sounds like you're perfectly willing to replace trees and be under reasonable conditions. That's all we're asking for.
Only within our jurisdiction.
Only within our jurisdiction, correct.
And that's all we're looking for.
I think that approach, Mr. Chichester, is much more logical. Like when a tree comes down, let's take a look at it, make a determination, and say, hey, that's on me, I'll be happy to replace it. And that will more likely than not be the case most of the time.
Right. 2 years from now, there's a tree that you're worried about it falling on your campers. You're going to come to us and say, hey, we need to deal with this tree, okay? So
Yeah, there's actually probably a few of those pretty soon.
Right. So we want to work with you on this. We want to deal with it. Let's try to do it in a way that we can all be happy with.
I appreciate that overture. That's a nice way to.
And bear in mind, no more Vista cutting. No, we know the mindset. Come on.
I'm done cutting. I haven't touched a tree in a long time, other than the ones that have come down in the storm.
Seaboard veiled threats actually work.
Are you planning on doing the restoration planting next year? Because I know that the berms still have to go in that
Yeah,
area
it's-
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll still,
That's what I figured,
they
yeah.
still gotta run water lines and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
through.
But that's probably anticipated in the spring?
Yeah, that would be
Yes.
spring's gonna be busy planting time for sure.
Are the sewer lines already in?
Sewer lines are 90% and they're all in the jurisdiction area.
Okay.
They're all in, and they were tough. Little ledge, very deep, and it was tough. We had our arborist out 2 or 3 times to, or actually 4 or 5 times to watched the procedure, and he was very comfortable with what we were doing and wrote a couple letters.
Is Joe your arborist?
Yes. And he's written, I think, 2 or 3 letters.
Right, a couple emails have been included in the monitoring reports.
All right, so how do we finish this up? Put this in
Well, I
the
think
order of
we-
conditions?
Well, maybe if we get something written with your agreement to that, and then we have that in our file, unless we don't think we need to write an amendment to the permit for that, so.
A letter should be sufficient.
I think that a letter of commitment for that, I think. I just want to go back to the pond and the stream, because I think we really need a formal assessment of that, with a kind of a detailed summary of a review that follows a appropriate protocol.
Let's finish this up.
All right, well, I thought you were done with that.
So specifically, any trees within 200-foot buffer zone must be replaced unless it is struck down by a tornado or a hurricane.
Or lightning.
Or lightning.
And we will evaluate each of the, we'll go out, we'll work with you. There may be certain circumstances that we
That's
agree that.
totally unrelated.
Yep. But it's, I'm hoping that we don't lose a large number of trees. That
I'm
are
hoping we
remaining.
don't lose many.
I'm afraid we are. I'm hoping that it's not, a catastrophic loss of large trees, but.
Don't read Wilton's book on the life of trees, because
All right, so that's
one.
one, right? Okay.
I have a question before we finalize this whole thing, though. You have an environmental monitor for the SWIP,
Yes.
correct? Why is it that with a really big rain event coming, the environmental monitor is not scheduled to come immediately after that rain event? Why is it that somehow he or she always shows up just before the big rain event? And so he doesn't get to see the damage after the fact.
Yeah, but I think, as an environmental monitor, I think it's more important to come out before the rains to make sure things are buttoned up, to provide guidance, what needs to be done to make sure that you're ready for the storm.
Yeah, but then he doesn't get to see the net effect of what happened because it wasn't buttoned up.
Well, maybe moving forward, now that we know we have this issue, I've already said, we need to go out there and continue to look at things. Maybe that's included because of this major issue that happened, that they.
Yeah, but one of the things that we have to slow down.
He comes weekly.
I know, and
It's an awful lot.
One of the timing things seems to be that he gets there before every rainstorm, but I digress. One of the things that disturbs me is that Becky is our agent, and Becky is widely distributed amongst the entire town of Sturbridge. And yet the number and frequency of site visits to your site is enormous. We need to slow that down. What we need to have is her using her proper authority, which is oversight. You guys are supposed to catch these things and notify us. For example, in the report that you just gave us, Becky had indicated that there was a slit in the erosion control barrier.
A small tear in the silt fence.
Right. But you guys are on site every bloody day.
So was the environmental monitor who looked at that the day before and it wasn't there.
It wasn't there and none of you all saw it.
It was low, it was 4 inches, it was at grade, and it was partially covered by riprap. A very, very small tear.
So we congratulate her for her
Getting
eagle
off-
eye.
We're getting off on a little bit.
No, this is part of the deal.
I mean,
because-
Becky, would you agree that that was a relatively very small tear, low to the ground, partially obscured with the riprap?
I saw it. It wasn't, I don't think it was obscure. It wasn't huge, but it was visible to me when I walked over there,
Okay.
so.
Well, we missed it, the environmental monitor missed it. He had been there the day before, and he is a extremely thorough person who walks the entire silt fence each and every time he's there.
Remind him to look low.
All right. Becky, you want to talk about the pond?
Right, I think that because of what's been reported to us by this property owner, to his resource area. Since, you know, he had photo documentation from April, I would recommend, and I think that it's our obligation to have a formal assessment of it with your findings that, or somebody's findings, that there isn't any impact to the interest it serves. I think that's necessary. I think the stream, we know there's some sediment in there. We need to have that looked at too. We've kind of looked at it back in beginning of September. I mean, it does appear there's a good amount of material in there. Some of that maybe has washed down now, I don't know, but I think that we really need something formal from you showing, or, you know, acknowledging that maybe there is some impact, and what to do to restore that resource area, so.
Yeah, I can look at it. Is it possible to get permission from?
Yes.
I could get permission for you,
Yeah.
yep. I think that's their job, is to make sure that what's been reported to us, to that resource area, hasn't been impacted.
Was there a breach in the berm at that area previously?
A long time ago, the gas line culvert.
Yeah, I told him there was. He's just bringing the subject up. Yeah. Yes. Yep. But that,
When was that? I'm sorry, I have no idea.
I don't know the date. It was, I'm gonna guess 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
Jim, did you have to fill that in? Did you get that job? No?
I may have, I don't know.
So that would be like the stream on site after the
Yeah.
duck pond, stream off site across, and then the pond
Right.
on Farquhar.
Yep. All right, so you'll take a look at that?
Pending permission.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll get that for you from,
Yeah. All right, that does it for you guys. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, some good help, I'm telling you. You're getting the best guys in town now, huh?
Trying to,
Yeah.
trying to.
Right, John?
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
all right. Back to 6:30.
All right.
Kind of forgot about that afterwards. So this was the notice of intent, file number 300-1049. This was 2 Lad Road. This was the landscape restoration plan.
Yep.
We were just waiting on the DEP file number for that one. We've received that. We have the plan that Erica developed that I helped with her. They did, over the past weekend, remove a lot of the slash out, and they're planning on removing some more out this coming weekend. So she said she'll make sure they get that out of there before this winter, and their plan will be to replant this spring, and I'll work with them. I'll work with them in the spring to kind of place everything based off of that. So I think we're ready to issue orders of conditions for that, so.
Good. No, thanks, Becky.
You're welcome. Do you want to vote on that? Approval of, I can,
Yes.
it's a sketch plan.
Holly, what's your vote?
Old business, 158 Lake Road enforcement order. I did send you, we finally did get the arborist report on that. We did just get it, we got it after our site visits on Tuesday. So you did want to look at the site after getting the arborist report, so I would like to add this onto our site visit. We do have permission to go onto the property, add this on for our site visit on Tuesday.
Great.
Okay? And,
Are you still getting pushback?
no.
No.
Nope, nope. I mean, it was kind of we were having a hard time getting him to respond, but he did finally respond. I don't know if he thought he had to come to a meeting out here at this point, but he did have the arborist go out there, and everything's been taken care of, so communication is flowing.
Good.
Go to the Riverlands one next. So, I've been approached by one of, Tom Chamberlain, I don't know if he's actual Trails Committee member.
I'm sorry, which one do you want now?
New business, request for support for amendment.
Got it.
Request to the Riverlands conservation restriction. So we talked about this a little bit before. So the Riverlands conservation restriction limits the number of parking spots on each side of the property. So we have property on Stallion Hill Road.
And Holland.
I think it's this one. And Holland Road. So I just put this together quickly for him. So let's zoom in a little bit here. All right, so this is on the Holland Road side. Holland Road side can have 10 parking spots. The Stallion Hill Road side, which I have a draft plan for, can have 20 parking spots plus 2 horse trailer spots. There are size limitations for that parking lot. So they were working to develop a plan to meet the size restriction, but they wanted a few more parking spots in that parking lot, not realizing that there was a number limiting it. So there's been some discussion with town council, and because the CR states the number of parking spots, it's been determined that a formal amendment request will need to be received in order to increase the parking lot over there. So they're looking for our support in making that change. So I looked at it a little bit with Tom. So on the Holland Road side, which is what we're looking at up here, you can see we have the Quinnebog River, which is a perennial stream. We've got 51 Holland Road, which is town property. We then have a private property in between, which is 53 Holland, and then we have 55, which is town-owned, which is a pretty small sliver in the front. So there's also, it looks like a potential intermittent stream that feeds down here and some border and vegetated wetland. So there's a lot of potential wetland restrictions, including riverfront, that could affect putting a parking lot of that size over here. They'd like to keep 4 spots along the road potentially. So from a wetlands perspective, including the parking on the other side within their allowed footprint, which is mostly outer riverfront area, would seem to be not more consistent, but it would be a better outcome, I would say, for wetland resource areas, as we would be having to encroach pretty close to our border and vegetated wetland here, so.
So is your suggestion to keep 4 spots at this place, but not try to expand any parking on the Holland Road?
No, the parking on Holland Road would not be inclusive of the Holland Road property. It's not part of the Riverlands.
There's parking on the other side where the Grand Trunk Trail is. They'd like to keep the ability to have 4 spots. There's not really parking there now. You can kind of pull off right there. Right. So that way they're not limiting themselves if they needed where the trail comes in or something like that in the future along the roadway.
But you're saying that the Holland Road side is not a good
parking lot?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
So the draft plan. So this is the draft plan for the Stallion Road side, and this line is the outer riparian. That's the inner riparian. This is where the sheds already are, so this area is already, portions of it are already open, disturbed areas.
Right.
So they are already allowed this size, and it would seem to make sense to just have it incorporated in here.
This line of trees here, is that accurate? Or is that something
I think
old?
that's this way.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know that it's fully accurate, because see how it looks like it's going, the trees are here? This is where the existing sheds already are, and.
So they're interested in, Tommy is interested in expanding the Stallion Hill property to
Yeah.
include additional parking spaces.
Correct.
Yeah, it looks to me right now like this would be existing open area, and this is treed.
Yeah, because actually, yeah, because
Those are the trails.
that would be the new entrance that comes in. This is the,
No, really, that's where they have, see where there's 2 markings?
Uh-huh.
this is the old entrance, the current entrance right here. That comes in, and that's the sheds there.
Right.
This would be the new one, so I think the tree line's supposed to be projected that way. But.
So what Tom's suggesting that the Trails Committee has indicated is that they would like to have no parking lot on the Holland Road side and 30 on the Stallion Hill side.
30 plus the 2 horse trailer sites.
I strongly disagree.
Well, they want to keep 4 parking spots, the ability to have 4 parking
So
spots
the
in the
4 on
Holland
the
Road.
other side, they have nothing to do with the Holland Road site. The Holland Road site,
Yep,
as the CR is written right now,
yep,
has 10 spots available on the Holland Road CR. They have
Correct.
nothing to do with the 4 across the street.
No, right, so this has nothing to do with anything across the street.
Correct.
The CR says they can have 10 on Holland Road.
Correct.
They want to take 6 away and put them on Stallion Hill.
Right, so here's my argument.
Yeah.
We are also in that same plan from the Worcester Polytech people, thinking about the likelihood of having a bridge that will cross over onto Main Street from the Riverlands. It makes virtually no sense to have the abundance of the parking on Stallion Hill Road and 0 parking on Holland Road.
Well, there's,
It would make a whole bunch of sense to continue having the 10 parking spaces on Holland Road. Because at some point in time, that bridge is going to be constructed. And at some point in time, we're going to need to have those parking spaces, and we cannot change the wording on a CR.
that's, I mean, if it's going to encroach on wetlands, it seems like it would make sense from a parking lot perspective. That's different. I mean, we do have this parking right here. This is where the Grand Trunk goes in. So once the Grand Trunk Trail goes in here, people will have to come down here and here. So there is some parking here. I don't know how many spots are over there, but,
Where is this new bridge supposed to go?
well, that's to be determined, but the idea is that it would be down
You see where the baseball field is?
somewhere,
Right around there.
yeah. So people can park.
Can I borrow this for a
Yep.
minute?
Nah, you have to give it back.
Here's another one.
Right in here.
I don't think this one. Oh, it does work.
That's one spot they're talking about right there.
Yeah, there's a couple different potential locations.
No, you can keep it.
The whole idea is that for about 12 years, they've been talking about it, and the likelihood of it coming into fruition is getting better and better. So to eliminate the likelihood of having parking spaces on Holland Road, I think, seems like it's shooting yourself in the foot ahead of time.
It's myopic.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's just, why, you
I
know.
don't think it's good thinking.
No, it isn't.
I think when we, as a committee, talked about how we wanted to separate the parking areas, we did it deliberately. 10 on Holland Road and 20 on the major road that was going to be used the most while we developed the Riverlands. Well, now the Riverlands development is getting processed rapidly. So we're going to need to have those 20 spaces plus the 2 horse carriage spaces or whatever it is on the Stallion Hill side.
Yeah.
But I really don't think that it's a wise idea not to have the Holland Road spaces available
I
for
agree.
future development.
I agree with you, David. I agreed with you before you even said it. I'm saying to myself,
Oh,
why?
wow.
Why in hell's name would I
That's,
not have
it's
those?
mind control. This is scary.
So I guess the bottom line is they're not gonna get the support to.
Okay, you'd like to,
Have the
you'd like
extra
to see that remain as is.
Yeah.
Okay. I will tell him. Dave, you can tell him.
I can't wait to see the email that I'll get.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably hear from my son by the time I get home.
All right, so there's a draft letter in your package. So, the town's looking into the, municipality vulnerability program. So this is offered through, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So this program, I'll just read it, it provides support for cities and towns in Massachusetts to begin the process for planning for climate change resiliency and implementing priority projects. The state awards communities with funding to complete vulnerability assessments and develop action-oriented resiliency plans. So, we've had a meeting, some of the town staff, with a representative from an organization to kind of give us some information on this program. There's, it's kind of like a 2-step process. You get kind of first, you get a grant to complete the assessment. All right, what are opportunities that where we need to look at with thinking about climate change? What do we need as a community? What kind of things, and say thinking about wetlands, are there areas of culverts that along a stream that could be replaced that are going to help with flood control when we have these big storms, things like that. So we can get the grant, we can start the assessment process and kind of start that brainstorming process and really kind of see what things in town we could maybe work to get another grant to change. And I guess when I was sitting in the meeting, I was really thinking about, wow, the stormwater issues that we have, that degrade wetlands when wetlands are here to protect us from these large events and filtering capacity and flood storage and all these things. So, I mean, I think it's a great program. A lot of other towns are already part of it. This draft is kind of a boilerplate, and we're just looking for commission support for us to try to get that grant to work on those projects.
Sounds good to me. Although I think the federal government just got out of the Paris Accord today, didn't they?
Well, it's still, we have another year.
Yeah.
So the day after the election will be the day it actually goes into complete effect.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
So you're all in favor of this, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
Want to sign the letter, Ed?
Sign it.
Put your name on it.
Yeah. If I spelled anything wrong, let me know.
Blame it on you. Tree removal, we already talked about 13 Old Hamilton, 256 Big Alum. I did send you, we asked for an arborist report. This is multiple, and I didn't print myself a copy of the arborist report, but it should be in the packet that I printed for you guys. Yeah, maybe I didn't.
Is it from Joe? Is it under Joe?
No, it's Northern Tree. Oh, you gave back to me?
I saw it.
And then I lost.
I saw it online. Did you?
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, but I can go in my folder and find it, right? I know I saved it, so I can pull it up here. All right. I thought I printed it earlier with my packet, but maybe I didn't.
In that packet that you printed?
Yeah.
Oh, that was all stapled together, you
Yeah.
as one thing.
Maybe I don't have it, but they might have
It's that
it.
bigger package. Maybe one of those.
So, right, I did send it to you, yeah, in advance, so it's, there's one oak already down, got uprooted in that storm, live tree, big tree, 47 inch, when I walked out there, I was like, oh my god, big tree, so it fell on their dock, so obviously that one needs to come out. But there's also a few other trees, there's a hemlock in decline, there's a dead elm, there's a dead maple, I did see the dead maple, I saw the dead elm, that one wasn't flagged, but I did talk to him afterwards, so I was able to figure that one out, I saw the hemlock. And that's it. There's actually an ash tree there that they're gonna treat. They're recommending treatment, so they're gonna treat it. I do have some photos. That's the hemlock in decline that the arborist is recommending to take out. This is the ash that will stay and get treated, which is a pretty
I'm not
significant.
even sure they should try to treat the ash.
Well, that's.
Probably would be better to agree to a cutting and have a replanting.
Put in a river birch or
Yeah,
something.
put in a
or-
river birch clump or something like that, because, my God, the likelihood is that it gets treated now, and it's gonna have to be treated again in 2020, and treated again in 2021, because the emerald ash borer is moving into this county. It's already been spotted in western Mass.
Well, I mean, that's up to you. I guess you could recommend that they remove it and replant because of the emerald ash borer, but if they want to keep it
I'd approve the request of the landowner.
as is.
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in addition.
David's correct. but-
So here's the,
Right, yeah.
the large oak that fell.
That is perfect habitat.
I know.
Yeah, right.
I'll never forget the woman that came in and said, I don't know why the fishermen are all stopping by that tree in the water.
So, and there's a maple on this side over here. I mean, so there's a good shoreline, on both sides.
Yep.
This is
Holy
the.
mackerel.
I think this is the elm here. This is the ash. So, right, there's a lot of trees there. So it's
as
removal
far as
of,
replanting, you're not really recommending any replanting?
I don't think it's necessary here, so.
Okay.
So it's the.
Redecking might be.
Yeah.
Redeck, yeah, new dock, yeah. So it's,
So if you agree to take that pine down, that's really gonna expose that ash.
the hemlock, yeah.
Will that help it?
Look at what it's gonna do. It's gonna open that ash right up.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You got an arborist that's gonna be there, a tree cutting company that's gonna be there. you would be taking away a problem and letting them fix it, but it's up to you guys.
I don't know, yeah, I personally agree with you, but I personally, let them do what they want to do. If they want to keep the ash, it's a nice big tree.
Yeah, I guess only from I understand what you're saying, Dave. Yeah, but I'm not, if they're willing to try to save that tree, I'm not going to discourage them from doing that.
Take a vote, Ed.
All in favor?
Reluctantly, just so that it can get through.
Yeah.
Well, we were reluctant too.
Yeah, but we need a quorum to get it passed.
Was that 256 Big Allen?
Yes. Yeah. and then
Stony Brook.
8 Stony Brook. This is go ahead.
It's the same house, huh?
Yeah, we went here
Yeah.
in 2017. So in
Did
2017.
we remove that little crossover on?
Yes, I didn't
screen?
see it, yep.
Okay.
And that brush pile was gone too, because I was like, is this the
Okay.
house we went to before? So back then, there was a large pine over here that they want to take down, and we said they should prune it, so they left that. And there was 3 dead ones in the back they took down. Or at least that's what we approved, but we did say we wanted the brush pile removed in the deck. So I didn't see it, so. The tree that they're requesting now, it's hard to see, but right back here is a hemlock. It's hard to see in the photo, but it is leaning towards the house. It is right on the bank of the brook, and there are dead roots exposed. Did have an arborist look at it, and I did go out there and I could see that anyways.
It's also a
So-
hemlock.
It's a hemlock, yep.
Yeah.
So I think that allow that removal. I think it is a hazard tree for those residents there.
All right.
All right.
But obviously no stumping or anything
Yeah.
like that, which they know. Okay?
Yeah, good point.
We need to vote.
All in favor? Stony Brook, done.
Just a couple things to let you know. I will quickly go through those.
What about 13 Old Hamilton? Did I miss that?
Oh, that's the one that Joe just submitted a report today. We get to go back out there and look at
Oh,
it.
okay, so
Yeah,
that's
so
on
it's,
hold.
yep, that's on our site visit schedule for Tuesday. And I'll send you that email on Friday with where we're going, et cetera. Project updates, just quick, 27 Lad Road. I did go to Superior Court last week. We were provided with a continuation. They're requesting to maybe be able to submit a notice of intent or some type of filing with us, which I was not going to make a judgment call on anything of that nature there. So our attorney would like to come to our next Conservation Commission meeting and have a session with you to discuss that project and moving forward.
So where is the court case?
It's in Worcester Superior Court. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, yep. So there's a continuation, the judge ordered that no,
I'm sorry, repeat it again? I missed it, Ed was coughing.
there's a continuation to January 7th, so that way the attorney can come and discuss it with us. The judge ordered no activity within our jurisdiction during that time frame for the continuation. We'll go back on the 7th. He did say that we should have the right to inspect the property, provided we give a 24-hour notice. I will be going to the property tomorrow to do that inspection. I've already scheduled that with them, so.
Fantastic.
100
Good job on that.
Hobbsbrook Plaza.
Yeah.
That's the failing retaining wall. The representative from CMI came in today because he's in town. He met with a contractor out there today. This contractor actually does retaining wall design and build work. And he kind of gave them 4 options. They still need to get, they've had discussions with their engineer firm who did the preliminary, that did the borings out there. They've only had preliminary results from the borings yet, so they really need to see the results of those borings, I guess. But they have made some good progress. It's been slow to get to this point, but the contractor today kind of gave them 4 options depending on what how the borings come back. So one is rebuild the whole wall. And
The whole length?
Yep, and re-slope the whole thing going back, and they'd probably lose the back pavement, so that's probably not a feasible option back there. So, rebuild, within the existing footprint and leaving the slope in the back the way it is. Take out all of it and redo it, new backfill, and, slightly change the slope in the back, but not as drastic as, a lower wall with a bigger slope, I guess.
None of their options talk about that tree?
Huh?
What tree?
Isn't there a tree that's standing right up and holding up part of that wall?
Oh, there's some fallen tree roots on there,
Yeah.
so, no. Another option is to drill like pilings in behind it and then somehow rebuild the wall connected to that. I don't really know exactly, so that's an option they're gonna look at.
So Becky, what have they decided to do? They're considering all of these options.
They're considering all these, but they need to get
The
the final
report.
boring stuff
Okay.
back. Another option, which is the least amount of work, is looking at just kind of replacing portions of the wall that are failing and getting the boulders out of there and what they can do. So whatever they do, they'll have to come in, obviously down the slope, cut all the trees up on top, probably do some, obviously we'll have some restoration plantings up there, but looking at planting things that aren't gonna impact the wall.
Right.
Probably not large pine trees like that are up there growing now, so. They will probably have to use the front to some degree temporarily for staging and things like that. So they're working on this. I asked them to give us something in writing, which I can give to you with some timeframes. Their plan would be to do this work in the spring. So I said, your engineering firm's very familiar with permitting process. You're gonna have to file a notice of intent, get this work done. So as we have winter approaching, you got time, have them start working on that.
He's not worried
Get the
about
plans.
frost upheaval causing more problems?
I don't know. I did say that we'd want some commitment that someone is, so I've said it before, going out there and looking at it. So the property manager does have someone checking on that, and is receiving kind of informal reporting from them.
Okay.
But they will get something more formal and be sending that to us too. So I did ask for that as well. And I said especially right with, winter coming up, so.
If we wait till spring, refresh my memory here, that wetland that is a few feet from the base of that wall, the level of that water is controlled by that outlet that so.
Yep.
Correct.
So in the spring, we don't have like an extra foot of water in there, right? It's always the same level as it is right now.
It should be, and actually that outlet has actually, kind of scoured down a little bit too.
It's gotten a little bit
so,
deeper.
Yeah. So
So there's less water in there now than there used to be. Is that what you're?
I don't know that I can say that, but, water's still flowing out.
In front of me.
The mosquito ditch was still flowing when I was there too, so that's still actively releasing some water. But no, I don't think it's gone down. I think, no, when we were there and we were looking at it with the wetland scientists, it was,
I might take Stephen's word a little bit differently. Because we get more water at one time
Yeah.
than we used to 5 years ago, we probably will have more water in that basin this spring than we
Yeah.
had 5 years ago.
Yeah.
potentially, yes, yeah. But I remember when we were looking at it, he was saying that the inlet for that swale was still at the same point, but the swale had kind of
But it
eroded
never
a little
really got
bit.
to the point where it was spreading and running. It sort of just sat there.
Actually, it did. She saw it,
Running?
yeah, yep. They were very proud to tell me that, he came back and said that it actually worked.
Yes, because it got saved.
All right.
Just quickly, the forest cutting plan for 133 Fisk Hill Road received a stop work order from DCR. A lot of erosion issues out there. They did cross through where they were supposed to put a wetland crossing in. Couple things out there. So they've gave them a verbal cease and desist. I believe it was almost maybe 2 weeks ago now. They immediately responded. They've worked to address some of the immediate erosion issues out there. They are going to meet with DCR and develop a remediation plan. So for me right now, I went through, he provided me pictures and a map. I mean, it's unclear the extent of wetland impacts at this time. I did ask to have permission to go out there with Chris from DCR and John Clark, the plan preparer who works for the harvester, pretty much said no. So on behalf of the property owner. So they are gonna, DCR will follow the MOU with DEP to address any concerns. Once they start to develop.
Property owner said no to the conservation
Yep.
agent?
Yeah, so they'll work to develop that remediation plan.
She's been shut down
Yep.
two
Chris-
times.
Yep, Chris will send it to us to look at, and, you know, I'm assuming that wetland scientist will go out there and take a look and make sure that anything is addressed, so.
Because Chris Caponi's not a wetland.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what I.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Not yet.
Oh,
Not yet, because Mr. Chairman has not gone through old business, has not gone through new business.
Wait a minute here. Thought we had a listing of.
Well, one of the pieces of new business
We did all the new
apparently,
business. We did all the old business.
apparently, one of the pieces of new business is urban forestry solutions. Because slipped into our packet tonight was
Oh,
a
no.
bid, which was not brought up at the time that the bids were talked about, while we were discussing things with the people from,
oh, yeah.
That was from before. I gave that to you already at the last meeting.
yeah. So when the man was going on about huge expenses, this is not huge expenses. This could have been used at that time. I thought it was for a different project.
I did too.
Because it said
No,
Smoky
sorry.
the Bear on it.
I assumed you weren't gonna bring it with you, so I printed it
Yeah, it's the wrong
today.
address too, right? 30 versus 31?
Yeah.
I didn't
Well, it
remember.
doesn't matter, that part, but what matters is that you're talking about $3,200.
Well, it says $4,400.
Oh, 44, sorry.
I-
That's not a huge amount of money, and then we're talking about only a smaller amount for each one of the other two planned years. So
Well, I
where are
think-
these ginormous sums that we heard?
Yeah. Well, I hate to,
I realize that, Mr. Chairman, but it is under new business because it was a document that was in our packet that needed to be discussed.
okay.
And here we have Urban Forestry Solutions providing us with a solution that was not presented during an open meeting. For which I feel badly, because I should have caught it too.
When I saw the numbers on the sheet that you gave us, David, and the 15,000 at the top,
Right,
that just made me, that's where we were.
yeah, that's.
What I had done was just added $5,000 to take care of the
Oh,
3
no,
years.
I'm just saying that's where I thought it was.
And I hadn't heard all these arguments against it before either. Mr. Chidester, you have a motion that I'd like to second. This goes back to her.
Yep.
This goes back to her.
So we going to adjourn?
Yep.
We're done.